The waitress who defied the crime lord and saved his family. She had 90 seconds to break his rule, or everyone in that dining room would die. The bomb was ticking under Adrian Voss's table, the most feared crime boss in the city. And Nina Hale, a quiet waitress nobody ever noticed, was the only person who knew. His guards had orders to kill anyone who approached. But if she stayed silent, 40 people would be scraped off the walls. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button, and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments so I can see how far this story has traveled tonight. The rain had been falling on the city for 6 straight days, and Nina Hale was starting to believe it would never stop. She stood at the back service station of Castellane, the kind of restaurant where a bottle of wine costs more than her monthly rent, and watched the water sheet down the tall, arched windows that faced the boulevard. Outside, the streetlights smeared into long golden streaks on the wet pavement. Inside, the dining room hummed with the soft, controlled noise of money, the clink of crystal, the low murmur of conversation, the faint scrape of a knife against bone china. A piano played somewhere near the bar, something slow, something you were supposed to recognize but probably didn't. Nina didn't recognize it. She never did. She adjusted the white apron tied at her waist, pulled a stray dark hair behind her ear, and picked up the silver tray waiting for her on the counter. 2 glasses of Barolo, a bottle of sparkling water, a small dish of olives that the chef had arranged like they were for a photograph. Table 9. An older couple, anniversary maybe, dressed like they didn't want to talk to each other. "Nina!" The voice came from behind her shoulder, sharp and hushed. It was Marco, the floor manager, a thin man with a thin mustache and thinner patience. "Table 9 is waiting. And smile, for God's sake. You look like somebody died." "I'm smiling, Marco." "No, you're not. You're doing that thing with your mouth that you think is a smile. It's not. It's a warning." She tried again, felt her lips tighten at the corners, felt the muscles in her cheeks pull in a way that hadn't come naturally in almost 2 years. Marco sighed. "Good enough. Go." She went. Castellane had 26 tables spread across 2 levels, a mezzanine that looked down on the main floor, and a private room in the back that Nina had never been inside. The ceilings were high and ribbed with dark beams, and the walls were the color of old butter. Every server wore the same thing: black slacks, white shirt, black vest, white apron folded at the waist. The uniforms were designed to make the staff disappear. That was fine with Nina. Disappearing was what she'd been practicing. She delivered the wine to table 9 with the small professional bow she'd learned in her first week. The husband grunted. The wife didn't look up from her phone. Nina topped off their water and moved on, sliding through the room like a current of air nobody noticed. She had been working here for 7 months and 2 weeks. She had memorized the names of every regular who tipped over $300. She had memorized which server was sleeping with which line cook. She had memorized where every security camera sat, where the blind spots were, which of the 2 back doors led to the alley, and which led to the dry storage basement. She had memorized the names on the reservation book, too. Everyone, every night. And she had written them down afterward in a small notebook she kept in the zippered lining of her purse. None of that was in her job description. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice that still sounded like her brother's said the same thing. It always said, "You keep looking, Nina. Eventually you find something." Her brother had been dead for 21 months. His name was Daniel. He had been 26 years old when he died. He had been a financial analyst at a firm nobody had heard of, a boy with glasses and a bad laugh, and a habit of calling their mother every Sunday whether he wanted to or not. The police had called it a suicide. A jump from a parking garage on the east side, concrete, 9 stories, no note. The detectives had been kind, in the tired way that detectives are kind when they've already decided the case is closed. One of them, a woman with gray roots growing out of a bad dye job, had put a hand on Nina's shoulder and said, "Sometimes we just don't know what people are carrying, honey." Nina had wanted to tell her that she did know, that Daniel had called her 4 days before he died, that his voice had been shaking so hard she could barely understand him, that he had said the words, "I think I got into something I can't get out of, Nina. I think I'm in trouble." And she had told him, stupidly, infuriatingly, okay, come over tomorrow. We'll figure it out." He hadn't come over tomorrow. She hadn't said any of that to the detective. She had nodded. She had gone home. She had cried for 6 days straight, and then she had stopped crying, and then she had started reading. Everything. Anything. Financial crime, shell companies, money laundering, the kind of men who disappeared people for asking the wrong questions. She read about the Voss organization first because Daniel's firm had managed a pension fund that was, through 4 degrees of separation, connected to a holding company that was, through 3 more degrees, connected to a man named Adrian Voss. The name meant nothing when she first saw it. It meant everything now. She couldn't prove anything. She wasn't a cop, wasn't a journalist, wasn't anything but a 29-year-old woman with a degree in comparative literature and a dead brother and too many hours to fill. So she had done the only thing she could think of. She had applied to work at the restaurant where, according to the one reporter who had ever written about him and kept her byline, Adrian Voss liked to eat on Friday nights. That had been 7 months and 2 weeks ago. She had seen him twice. Once in October, a quick dinner with 2 men she didn't recognize. Once in December, a longer one, his wife and daughter at the table. Both times she had not been his server. Both times she had memorized everything anyway. The way he sat, straight-backed, but not stiff, like a man who had taught himself good posture the hard way. The way he didn't look at menus. The way his eyes moved around the room in short, steady sweeps, not paranoid, just aware. The way a hawk looks at a field. The way everyone at every other table pretended not to know he was there. Tonight was a Friday. Tonight the reservation book had a name on it that wasn't his. Marchetti, Party of 4, 8 p.m. But Nina had seen that name on the book both other times too, and she knew what it meant. She had known since the lunch shift. The host stand was at the front of the dining room, near the heavy brass doors that opened onto the sidewalk. Nina passed it on her way back to the service station and caught Elena's eye. Elena was the hostess, 23, blonde, the kind of pretty that got her twice as many phone numbers as she wanted. She leaned across the stand with an expression that was half excitement and half nausea. "They're here," she whispered. "I know," Nina said. "How did you—" The 2 SUVs out front, the guy in the black coat by the door, the second guy across the street, pretending to smoke. Elena stared at her. "You're weird, Nina." "I know." "Marco's putting you on table 12. Nina felt her stomach fold in on itself. Table 12 was a 4-top in the back corner of the main floor under the mezzanine overhang. It was the table Castellane gave to customers who wanted to see without being seen. A clear view of the room, a wall at your back, one of the cameras broken for the last 3 months, and nobody had fixed it. It was the table they always gave to Adrian Voss. "I'm not," Marco said. "I was on the 6 top at 15 at." Mia called out, "Marco shifted everyone. You got 12. Elena's eyes were very wide. "Don't screw it up." "I won't." "He tips 1,000 in cash. 1,000, Nina. If you—" "Elena, I won't screw it up." She walked away before Elena could say anything else, because if she didn't walk away, her hands were going to start shaking and Elena was going to see it. In the narrow hallway that led to the kitchen, she stopped, pressed her back against the wall, and breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. A trick she'd read in a book written by a hostage negotiator. She had read a lot of books in 21 months. "You've been waiting for this," she told herself. "You have been waiting for this for 200 days. You don't get to fall apart now." She wasn't going to do anything. That was the first rule. She wasn't going to confront him. She wasn't going to say anything about Daniel. She wasn't going to slip arsenic into his wine. She had thought about that, actually thought about it, in the bad early months, and the memory still embarrassed her. She was just going to serve him dinner. She was going to stand close to him. She was going to listen, and she was going to watch. And she was going to file every detail in the part of her brain that had become, over the last year, a kind of filing cabinet she couldn't close. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. The plan lasted another 14 minutes. He came in at 8:04. Nina was carrying a breadbasket to table 4 when the front doors opened and the sound of the dining room shifted. It was a small shift, nothing you'd notice if you weren't listening for it, but every conversation in a 6-foot radius of the door got a little quieter, and then the quiet spread in a slow ring across the room, the way a stone dropped in a pond sends ripples out. She didn't turn her head. She kept walking. She set the bread down at table 4 with a practiced smile and said something about the olive oil being from a specific hillside in Tuscany, and the man at the table nodded like he cared. Then she looked. Adrian Voss was 48 years old. He was not a tall man, but he carried himself like one. Dark suit, no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone. His hair was black going to gray at the temples, cut short, the kind of cut you got from a barber who had been cutting it the same way for 20 years. His face was all hard angles, a jaw you could cut paper on, a nose that had been broken at least once, eyes so dark they looked black under the restaurant lights. He was handsome in a way that did not invite any kind of comment about it. His wife was on his arm. Her name, Nina knew from the tabloids, was Sophia. She was 44, honey blonde, wearing a deep green dress and the kind of diamond earrings that had probably been purchased with money that had a body count. Their daughter was behind them. Her name was Lena. She was 17. She was wearing a white sweater over a black dress, no jewelry, and she was already on her phone. The fourth member of the party was the one Nina had not been expecting. He was older than Adrian, maybe 60, heavy set, a gray beard trimmed tight, a suit that didn't fit as well as Adrian's. He walked half a step behind the family, and his eyes went around the room in the same steady sweeping pattern that Adrian's did. Not a guest, not family, a lieutenant. Nina made a mental note of the face. And then there were the others. Two men stopped at the door and stayed there, flanking it, not quite talking to each other, but not quite separate either. A third man peeled off and took a seat at the bar, alone, angled so he could see the whole room in the mirror behind the bottles. A fourth drifted toward the back hallway that led to the restrooms and the kitchen, and stationed himself there with a drink he wasn't going to drink. All four of them wore black. All four had earpieces with the curled plastic cord disappearing into their collars. All four were built like men who did not sit at desks. And somewhere outside, Nina knew, because she had watched from the window, there was a driver in each of the two SUVs, engines running, wipers going. Marco appeared at her elbow, smooth as oil. "Mr. Marchetti is here," he murmured. "Table 12. You know what to do." She didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded. "Nina." She looked at him. His eyes, for once, were not annoyed. They were something closer to afraid. "Be perfect tonight," he said. "Do you understand me? Not good. Not great. Perfect." "Yes, Marco." He squeezed her shoulder, a gesture he had never made in 7 months, and disappeared toward the host stand. Nina took one breath, 2. Then she walked. Good evening. My name is Nina, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." The words came out steady. She had practiced them in her head 1,000 times for 1,000 other tables, and her body knew how to say them even when her mind was 3 steps away. She stood at the edge of the table, hands folded in front of her apron, eyes moving between them in the precise, polite triangle they had taught her in training. Husband, wife, guest. "Skip the daughter, she's a kid. Don't make her feel like a customer." Sophia Voss smiled at her, a real smile, warm. "Thank you, Nina. It's lovely to see you." The daughter didn't look up from her phone. The older man, the lieutenant, nodded once without smiling. Adrian Voss looked at her. It was a look that lasted maybe a second and a half, long enough for her to feel it in the bones of her chest. His eyes were not hostile. They were not friendly. They were the eyes of a man who was cataloging her the way she cataloged everyone else. Height, weight, age, hands, shoes, anything distinctive. She felt him take her in and put her away in whatever filing cabinet he kept behind his own face. And then he looked back down at the menu he hadn't opened. "Thank you, Nina," he said. His voice was quieter than she had expected. A little rough. A smoker who had quit a long time ago. "We'll start with a bottle of the 2009 Brunello. The Biondi Santi, if you still have it. And a Perrier for my daughter." "Of course, sir. I'll be right back with those." She left the table. Her legs worked. Her hands worked. She had done it. She had stood 3 feet from Adrian Voss and not done anything stupid. She had not thrown wine in his face. She had not spit on him. She had not whispered my brother's name was Daniel Hale and watched his face for recognition. She had been a waitress, and she had been good at it, and she was walking now across the dining room to put in the wine order like she was a normal person in a normal job on a normal night. It was, she realized, the proudest she had been of herself in almost 2 years. The pride lasted about 8 minutes. She brought the wine. She uncorked it at the table, the way she had been taught, turning the bottle so they could all see the label, pouring a small measure for Adrian to taste. He lifted the glass, swirled it once, sniffed it, sipped, nodded. She poured the rest. She left. She came back. She took their food orders. The wife wanted the branzino. The daughter wanted the pappardelle and made a face when her mother suggested a salad. The lieutenant wanted the ribeye medium rare. Adrian wanted the veal. She read it back. She smiled. She left. On her next pass through the dining room, she noticed two things. The first thing was that the man at the bar, the guard, had shifted. He was no longer watching the room. He was watching his phone, holding it close to his chest, reading something, and his jaw was very tight. He put the phone down on the bar, face down, and picked up his glass. He didn't drink from it. His eyes were now on the front door. The second thing was a man at table 17. Table 17 was a two-top near the front, under the window. He was alone, mid-40s maybe. Thinning brown hair, a gray blazer over a black crew neck, wire-rimmed glasses. He had ordered the tasting menu 40 minutes ago and had barely touched the first two courses. In front of him, on the white tablecloth, was a phone, just sitting there, face up. He was not on a date. He was not meeting anyone. He had a book, an actual paperback book, that he was pretending to read. But his eyes kept flicking to table 12. Not in the glancing at the famous guy way that Nina had watched half a dozen people do in the last 20 minutes. Not the quick look and back. His eyes were going to table 12 and staying there for 3, 4, 5 seconds at a time, and then back to the book. And the book wasn't moving. He hadn't turned a page since she had first noticed him. Nina felt the small hairs on the back of her neck begin to lift. "Stop it," she told herself. "You're making things up. You're looking for something because you want something to find. He's just a weird guy eating alone. Rich people are weird. Let him be weird." She went back to the kitchen. She picked up a round of bread service for table 5. She delivered it. She came back through the dining room. She looked at table 17 again. The man was gone. His jacket was draped over the back of his chair. His phone was still on the table. His book was still closed on the placemat. His wine glass was half full. He had not paid the bill. No civilized diner in a restaurant like Castellane left a table without their jacket unless they were using the restroom, and he had just gone in that direction, which made sense, which was normal, which was fine. Except it wasn't fine, because as Nina stood there carrying nothing, staring at an empty table across the room, the filing cabinet in her head opened and started pulling drawers at speed. The man at the bar on his phone, the guard at the back hallway, who had not moved when the other man walked past him toward the restroom. That was the thing. That was the thing that wasn't right. Adrian Voss had a guard posted in the hallway that led to the restrooms, and when a strange man walked down that hallway, the guard should have moved, should have stood up straighter, should have tracked him, should have done something. And he hadn't. He had stayed exactly where he was, with his drink in his hand, not looking at anything in particular, which meant he had been told not to look, which meant Nina's stomach dropped. He was not their guard. "Nina!" Marco was in her ear again. "The veal is up. Go!" She went. Her feet carried her to the kitchen window, and her hands took the tray with its 4 plates steaming under their silver domes, and her body walked her back across the dining room toward table 12, and her brain was screaming, "Calm down. You are wrong. You are seeing ghosts. You have been looking for bad men for so long that you see them everywhere. That guy is peeing. That guy is on his phone. That guy is bored." She set the plates down at the table one by one, in the order she had been trained. The lady first, the daughter, the guest, Adrian last. When she bent down to place his plate in front of him, her eyes dropped, just for a half second, just out of habit, because that was how she had been trained to check the table for a dropped napkin or a loose fork. And she saw it, under the table, tucked up against the inside of the heavy wooden pedestal, where the base of the table met the floor. A matte black rectangle, about the size of a thick paperback book. A small red LED on its face, steady, not blinking. Wires running from the back of it, one set disappearing into the pedestal, another set taped to the underside of the table with silver duct tape. She was close enough to hear it, tick, 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 neko. Her body did something then that she would think about for the rest of her life. It did not freeze. It did not flinch. Her hand finished placing Adrian's plate. Her other hand lifted the silver dome. Her voice said, in perfect, pleasant practice tones, "Veal Milanese for you, sir. Enjoy." She straightened up. She smiled. She took one step back from the table. "Thank you, Nina." "Of course, sir." She walked to the service station. She put the empty tray down. Her hands, she noticed with a strange clinical detachment, were not shaking. Her knees were. Her knees were doing something that felt like an elevator dropping over and over, a tiny plunge inside her leg every half second, but her hands were steady. Her brain was moving very fast and very slow at the same time. A bomb. There is a bomb under his table. You saw a bomb under his table. You did not see a bomb under his table. You saw a shape. You saw a shape and a light. And you heard something and your brain made it a bomb because you have been reading about bombs for a year. You heard it ticking. Restaurants tick. Ice machines tick. Radiators tick. You heard it ticking. She turned around. She looked across the dining room. Her eyes found the guard at the bar. He had just stood up. He had not paid for his drink. He was walking, unhurried, toward the front door. He passed the hostess stand. He passed the coat check. He pushed through the heavy brass doors and was gone into the rain. Her eyes went to the back hallway. The guard who had been stationed there, the man Adrian had put there, was also gone. The chair was empty. The drink was on the little shelf. He had left too. They were not his guards. Or rather, and this was worse. This was so much worse. One of them was his and had been paid off, and the others had been watching from the start and were getting clear. She thought of the man at table 17, the man in the restroom. She thought of his phone on the table, face up, screen bright, the way a detonator might look. Oh, she thought, oh no. Her eyes went to table 12. Adrian Voss had just cut into his veal. His wife was laughing at something the older guest had said. The daughter was still on her phone. They had no idea. They had absolutely no idea that underneath their table, 6 feet from the branzino and the ribeye and the brunello, a small red light was counting down the last seconds of all their lives. Nina looked at the clock above the bar. It was 8:47. She did not know how long she had. She did not know how long the timer had been set for. She did not know if the device needed the man in the restroom to send a signal from his phone, or if it was already primed and would detonate on its own. She did not know how large the charge was, how far the shrapnel would travel, how many of the 40 people in this room would die. She did not know if the man at the bar had been her only fellow traveler who understood what was happening, or if there were others, servers, a cook, anyone, who had taken an envelope and decided not to say anything. She knew, with absolute cold clarity, 3 things. She knew she could walk away right now. She could walk into the kitchen, out the back door, into the alley, and she could keep walking. There would be an investigation. Her face would be on cameras. She would have to disappear. But she would be alive. She knew she could scream. She could yell bomb at the top of her lungs, right now, and 40 people would stampede for the door, and most of them would get out, and some of them would not, because there would be a crush at the entrance, and because the man with the phone might press the button the moment he heard the scream, and because panic kills almost as well as explosives. And she knew. She knew this the way you know you are cold, the way you know the color blue, that the only play with any chance of working was the worst one. She had to tell him. She had to tell Adrian Voss quietly in his ear in the next 15 seconds, without triggering any of his instincts and without being seen by the man in the restroom, that there was a bomb under his table. She had to walk back to the most dangerous man in the city, a man whose guards had been told not to let anyone near him without invitation, a man she had spent 21 months hating with the kind of hatred you nurse like a fire. She had to lean into his space. She had to whisper something that would sound to him exactly like a threat. She had to trust him to not kill her before he hurt her. She picked up a bottle of water from the service station, sparkling, unopened, a reason to be at the table. She walked. Later, when she tried to remember that walk, she could never get the details right. She knew the dining room had been full. She knew the piano had been playing something with a lot of high notes. She knew a woman at table 6 had laughed, loud and bright, and the sound had cut through everything else. She knew her own feet had made no sound on the carpet. She knew that with every step, she waited to hear the sound she was walking toward. She waited for the roar. She waited for the light. She waited for the moment her body would stop existing, the way her brother's body had stopped existing, and she waited to find out finally if any of it meant anything. It didn't come. She reached the table. The lieutenant, the older man with the beard, looked up first. His eyes narrowed. His hand moved, not fast, but with purpose, to the inside of his suit jacket. He didn't take anything out. He just rested his fingers there, where a gun would be, and watched her. Sophia Voss looked up next. Her smile was confused, but still polite. "Oh, Nina? Is everything—" Adrian was last. He had been mid-sentence, saying something to the lieutenant about somebody they both knew. He stopped. He turned his head, and Nina saw his eyes change. They did not widen. They did not narrow. They simply sharpened, the way a camera lens sharpens when it focuses. And she understood in that moment that she had seen up until now only the idle version of this man. This was a different one. This was the version other men had seen before they stopped being alive. "Mr. Marchetti." Her voice came out steady. She was astonished by her own voice. "I'm so sorry to interrupt. I wanted to offer a compliment from the chef, a bottle of our sparkling." She was already leaning in. She was already tilting the bottle as if to show him the label. Her body was blocking the line of sight between him and the front door. Her mouth was about 6 inches from his ear. "Don't react," she breathed. His whole body locked. She felt it, felt the muscles in his shoulder go still against the sleeve of his suit. He did not turn his head. He did not move his hand. The lieutenant had risen 3 inches off his chair, and Adrian stopped him with nothing, with a half flicker of the fingers on his right hand, a gesture so small she almost missed it. "There's a bomb under your table," she whispered. "Red light. Wires to the pedestal. It's real. The man at table 17 is gone. I think he's in the restroom with the detonator. 2 of the men you thought were yours just walked out the front door." For 1 full second, he did not move. Then, very slowly, slower than a normal movement, deliberate, theatrical in its slowness, he reached out, picked up his wine glass, and took a sip. He set the glass down. He smiled at his wife. He said, in a warm voice that carried no tension at all, "Darling, would you pass the salt?" Sophia Voss, confused, passed him the salt. His eyes flicked to Nina. They stayed on her face for less than half a second. It was enough. She had served tables for 7 months. She knew how to read a face. "Stand there," the look said. "Pour the water. Don't leave." Her hands opened the bottle. Her hands poured the water. Her body made the small, practiced movements of a server at a table, and her face smiled the small, practiced smile, and her heart was beating so hard she could feel it in the soft place under her jaw. Adrian Voss said, conversationally, to the lieutenant, "Sal, would you step outside and check if the car's been moved? I thought I heard something." The lieutenant didn't ask what kind of something. He rose. He buttoned his jacket. He walked at a normal, unhurried pace toward the front doors. Nina watched his hand brush once against the inside of his jacket as he passed the bar. The bartender, who had been polishing a glass, stopped polishing. Adrian turned to his wife. His voice was still warm. His eyes were no longer warm at all. "Sophia," he said. "Lena, listen to me very carefully. I need both of you to stand up right now and walk to the powder room at the front. Don't run. Don't look around. Just go. Lena, put the phone away. Sophia." And here his voice did something, a small break, a tiny register of something that might have been the thing he felt for his wife when he had to tell her something terrible. "Please." Sophia Voss had been married to this man for 18 years. She did not ask why. She picked up her purse. She touched her daughter's arm. She said, in a perfectly calm voice, "Come on, sweetheart. I need to fix my lipstick." The daughter looked up from her phone for the first time all evening. She looked at her father. Her father looked back at her, and whatever passed between them in that half second was enough. She put the phone in her purse. She stood up. She walked, with her mother, across the dining room toward the powder room at the front. Nina was still pouring water. The glass had been full for some time. Adrian looked at her. Really looked at her. It was a look that went through her skin and into the filing cabinet behind her own face, and she had the terrible feeling that he was seeing more than she had meant to show him. "What's your name?" he said, quietly, not a question. "Nina." "Nina what?" She hesitated. It was the smallest hesitation. But she was a server speaking to a customer. and she hesitated, and he saw it. Nina Hale. His eyes did not flicker, but something behind them did. Nina Hale, he said softly. How did you see it? I was bending down to put your plate in front of you. No, I mean, how did you know what it was? She looked at him. The red light under the table was somewhere around her left knee. The man in the restroom was somewhere behind her back. She realized maybe 30 more seconds of her life to decide what kind of person she was going to be. I read a lot, she said. Adrian Voss looked at her for one more second. Then, very calmly, he said, walk to the kitchen. Tell the chef there's a gas leak. Tell him to come out and announce an evacuation. Not a panic, a gas leak. Polite. Firm. Start from the back tables. You're going to help. You're going to smile. You're going to get every single person in this room out that front door in the next 90 seconds, and you're going to do it like nothing is wrong. Do you understand me? Yes. Nina. Yes. If you run, I'll know. She believed him. She walked. Behind her, she heard Adrian Voss push his chair back. She heard him button his suit jacket. She heard him say, in a voice that was the most normal voice in the world, "Excuse me a moment. I need to find my daughter." She did not look back. She walked into the kitchen, and the heavy swinging door closed behind her, and the ticking of the clock above the pass was the loudest sound she had ever heard. The kitchen at Castellane was the kind of place where noise lived on top of noise. Pans clanging, flames wumping up from the burners in short blue bursts, the hiss of something searing, the shout of someone calling a ticket, the low thump of a cleaver working through bone on the butcher block in the back. Nina had walked through that kitchen 1,000 times in 7 months, and every single time it had assaulted her. Tonight she walked through it and heard none of it. Tonight the only sound in her ears was the ticking she was not, technically, still hearing. Chef Darian was at the pass, a white towel over his shoulder, plating a risotto with the kind of slow, tweezer-fine precision that made the line cooks call him the surgeon when he wasn't listening. He was a big man, 6'4", shaved head, a neck tattoo that poked above his collar when he leaned forward. He had come up out of a kitchen in the city where nobody had been gentle, and he was not, as a rule, gentle either. Nina had seen him scream a line cooked to tears over an overcooked scallop. She had seen him fire a dishwasher for being 40 seconds late. He did not like to be interrupted at the pass. He did not like servers in his kitchen past the expediting station. She walked right past the expediting station and up to his elbow. "Chef!" He didn't look up. "Out of my kitchen, Nina." "Chef, I need you to listen to me." I said, "There's a bomb in the dining room." His hand stopped moving. The tweezers in his fingers did not shake, did not drop, but they stopped 2 inches above a piece of microbasil. He did not look up. "Say that again," he said. His voice was flat. It was not the voice of a man who thought she was joking, and it was not the voice of a man who believed her yet. It was the voice of a man who had spent his whole adult life in kitchens where sometimes a pot of boiling oil got knocked off a burner and you had 3 seconds to decide if everyone you loved was going to keep their skin. "There is a device under table 12. I saw it. Wires, detonator, red light. Mr. Marchetti knows. He told me to come in here and tell you to announce a gas leak. He wants a calm evacuation. Start with the back tables. No running, no panic. Out the front door. 90 seconds. Darian set the tweezers down. He wiped his hands on the towel over his shoulder, one slow pass. Like he was giving himself time to decide whether the world was still the shape he had thought it was when he woke up. "Marchetti," he said. "Yes." "He told you." "He told me." Darian's eyes came up and found hers. They were very blue and very tired, and in them Nina saw the brief, familiar calculation of a man who knew more about his customers than he was supposed to and had never once said anything about any of it. He did not ask her if she was sure. He did not ask her how she knew. He turned his head, looked at the pass, looked at the 8 plates of food that were seconds from going out, looked back at her, and then at nothing. And then he pulled the towel off his shoulder and dropped it on the counter. "Marco," he said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Marco, get in here." Marco was already coming. He had been standing at the dish window for the last minute, and something in his face said that he had been watching her walk into the kitchen and was already a quarter of the way to understanding that something was wrong. "Chef?" "Gas leak," Darian said. "You're going to tell the floor we have a gas leak. I can smell it from the line. Insurance says we evacuate. I'll send my guys out through the back. You get the front. Start with the back tables. Don't rush anyone. Comp their meals. We'll refire when the gas company clears us." Marco looked at Nina. Nina did not move her face. Marco looked back at the chef. "Chef," he said carefully, is there actually—" "Marco." Darian put one big hand flat on the stainless steel of the pass. "I'm telling you there is a gas leak. I'm telling you to clear my dining room. Are we going to have a conversation about this, or are you going to do your job?" Marco swallowed. His thin mustache twitched once. Then, in a small shift Nina would remember later, the manager who had spent 7 months scolding her about her smile seemed to grow an inch. His shoulders squared. He nodded once. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I've got it." He turned and pushed back through the swinging door, and his voice from the other side of it was already taking on that warm, apologetic tone that managers use when they are about to inconvenience the wealthy. Darian looked at Nina. "You're sure?" "Yes." "You're certain?" "Chef, I'm standing here." He held her eyes for a second longer. Then he nodded once and turned to face his kitchen. "Listen up," he said, and every head on the line came up at once, because they knew that tone. "Fires off, gas off, walk-in closed. Everyone out the loading door, single file, right now. Bring your phones. Leave everything else. Move." They moved. 12 cooks, 3 dishwashers, 2 pastry girls. They didn't ask. They didn't grab their coats. They turned off the burners and they walked. Nina went with them for 3 steps, and then she stopped, and then she turned around. Darian was still at the pass. He had picked up a fire extinguisher from the wall. He saw her looking. "Go," he said. "I'm not—" "Nina, go." "He told me to get the dining room out." "He told you to tell me to get the dining room out. I'm doing it. Go." She went, because she did not have time to argue with a man who was bigger than her and holding a fire extinguisher. She pushed through the swinging door back into the dining room, and she stepped into a different restaurant than the one she had left. Marco was standing in the middle of the room, one hand raised, his voice carrying in a way she had never heard from him before. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the inconvenience, but we've detected a gas leak in the building, and for your safety, we'll be asking everyone to make their way out through the front doors. Please, no rush, no need to gather your things. All meals are, of course, complimentary. Sir, yes, your coat will be held at the stand. We'll have it for you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your understanding." He was good. He was genuinely good. The smile was on a rail. His hands made the small shepherding motions that tour guides use. The people at the back tables, the ones farthest from the door, were already rising, looking puzzled but not afraid, gathering their purses with the mild irritation of people whose evening had been derailed. The people closer to the front were slower. A woman at table 3 was arguing with her husband about whether they should take the wine with them. A man at table 9 was on his phone, waving Marco off like a fly. An older couple near the host stand had not yet registered that anything had been said. Nina's eyes went to table 12. It was empty. Adrian's chair was pushed back. His napkin was on his seat. His wine glass was half full, and his veal was cut but uneaten. He was nowhere she could see. Neither was his wife, neither was his daughter, neither was the lieutenant. Her eyes went to the powder room. The door was closed. Her eyes went to the restroom hallway at the back. Empty. Her eyes went to the front door, where people were beginning to filter out into the rain, one by one, Marco's hand guiding them through with the pleasant insistence of a man who was selling them their own survival. And then her eyes went to the man at table 17, who had just walked back out of the restroom hallway. He had the phone in his hand. He stopped at the edge of the hallway, half in shadow, and his eyes went across the room, and he understood, in the way that she had understood 8 minutes ago, that something was wrong. The back tables were standing up. A manager was hurting. The kitchen was silent. He looked at the front door. He looked at table 12. He saw the empty chairs. His thumb moved. Nina saw the thumb move. She saw him look down at the phone in his hand, saw his finger hover, saw his jaw tighten, and she did the stupidest thing she had ever done in her life. She screamed his name, except she didn't know his name. So what she screamed was, "Hey, you!" Her voice cut through the dining room the way a glass breaks. Every head turned. Marco's head turned. The couple at the front door turned. The man at table 17 turned. For half a second he just looked at her. Then he raised the phone. Two things happened at once, and later Nina would never be able to untangle which one came first, because they happened inside the same heartbeat. The first thing was that a man she had not seen, a man who had been standing in the shadow of the host stand the entire time, stepped out of that shadow and closed the distance to table 17 in 4 long strides. He did not run. He walked very fast with the economy of motion of a man who had done this before, and his right hand came up and caught the wrist of the man with the phone, and his left hand went flat against that man's throat, and the phone came out of the hand with a twist that Nina heard over the murmur of the dining room. A small, wet, wrong sound. The second thing was that Adrian Voss came out of the powder room at the front of the restaurant with his wife and daughter behind him, and he did not look at his wife or his daughter. He looked straight across the room at Nina, and he nodded, one time, and then his eyes went to the front door, and the nod became a tilt. And Sophia Voss, God bless her, pulled her daughter through the door and out into the rain without looking back. The man with the phone was on the floor of table 17. Nina saw the other man, the one who had come out of the shadows, bend over him for 1 second, pick up the phone, glance at it, and pocket it. Then he rose and walked, unhurried, toward the front door, as if he had not just broken a man's wrist in a 4-star restaurant. He passed within 3 feet of Nina and did not look at her. The last of the diners filtered out. Marco was the second to last. He held the door for Nina, and his face, when she reached him, was white and wet. "Are you coming?" he said. It was not really a question. "Yeah," she said. "Yeah, I'm coming." They stepped out into the rain together. The boulevard was full of coats and umbrellas and confused rich people. Castellane's awning gave some shelter to the crowd directly in front of the doors, but the rain had gotten heavier and people were milling about, complaining, trying to make sense of what had happened. A few of them had already pulled out their phones and were calling cars. Some were asking Marco what was going on. Marco was apologizing on a loop. Nina wasn't listening to any of it. Her eyes went to the SUVs. They were still there, but the drivers had gotten out, both of them. They were standing on the sidewalk, one on each side of the crowd, at a distance of about 15 feet from the front doors, and they were doing the job that Nina had not realized until that moment that they were doing. They were looking outward, not at Castelaine, at the street, at the cars, at the rooftops, at everything that was not Castelaine. They had their coats open. Their right hands were not visible. They were, she understood, a perimeter. Somewhere inside this perimeter was Adrian Voss, who had walked his wife and daughter out the front door of a restaurant that he believed was seconds from becoming a crater. He had done it without running. He had done it with a hand on the small of his wife's back, like they were leaving a charity gala. He had done it because running would have told whoever was out here, whoever was waiting for him, that he knew. Nina's eyes kept moving. Across the street, the windows of the office building were dark. The alley next to the florist's was empty. A taxi was idling at the corner, its driver reading something on his phone. A black sedan was parked at the curb 2 doors down with no plates. She filed all of it. "Nina," Marco's voice. "Nina, honey, you should... Are you all right?" "I'm fine." "You should sit down. There's a planter." "Marco, I'm fine." "Nina, Marco, please." He took a half step back. She didn't mean to have snapped. She didn't have the bandwidth to apologize. Her eyes were still moving. There was no explosion. She had been waiting for it. Her body had been bracing, without her permission, for the long breath she had been holding to end in a single white flash through the restaurant windows. It didn't come. Seconds passed. More seconds. A minute. She watched the rain hit the awning and drip off the edge in a perfect beaded line, and the restaurant stood there, lit from inside, empty now, a diorama of a disaster that had not happened. And then from the front door, Adrian Voss appeared again. He had put Sophia and Lena in one of the SUVs. Nina had missed the moment. Her eyes had been on the rooftops. And he was walking back. He had the collar of his coat turned up against the rain. He was not hurrying. He walked to Marco. He said, in a pleasant voice loud enough for the people nearest to hear, "Marco, I'm very sorry for your trouble. I'll call tomorrow about the wine we didn't finish. Are all of your people out?" "Yes, sir." "Yes, Mr. Marchetti." "Good." Marco nodded several times, the way a man nods when he does not know what else to do with his head. Adrian's eyes went past him and landed on Nina. "Nina!" She stepped forward. She did not know her own face at that moment. She could not feel it. Her hands were cold and the rain had made a wet ring around her collar, and her ears had been ringing for a long time. "Yes, sir." "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. It wasn't exactly an order either. It was the kind of sentence men like him had learned to use when they wanted something done without it looking like they had asked. She looked at Marco. Marco looked at her. Something passed between them that was not quite permission, because Marco did not have the authority to give her any, but something passed, and she stepped out from under the awning and she walked with Adrian Voss into the rain. He walked her past the first SUV, past the second, past the men at the perimeter, who did not look at her but who, she understood, registered her, in the same way she had registered them. He walked her 15 yards up the boulevard to where a black sedan had quietly pulled up to the curb with its parking lights on. He opened the back door. He gestured with the small old-fashioned courtesy of a man who had been taught manners early and had kept them. "After you." She looked at the car. She looked at him. He was waiting, patient, the rain beating on the shoulders of his coat. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, the ones that had sharpened into a knife when she had leaned into his ear an eternity ago, were back to something else now. Not warmth. She was not going to pretend to herself that it was warmth. It was more like the look a chess player gives the opponent who has just made a move he didn't see coming. "Where are we going?" she said. "Somewhere quiet. We need to talk." "My shift?" "Your shift is over, Nina. I imagine the restaurant will be closed for several days. My coat is inside. Sal will have it sent to you." "My purse?" "Sal will have that sent too." She looked at the open door. She looked at the leather seats. She looked one more time at his face. "If I don't get in this car," she said, "what happens?" He tilted his head just a little. The corner of his mouth did something that wasn't a smile. "Then you walk home in the rain, and I have somebody find your address so I can send the coat. That's it." "What did you think I was going to do, Nina?" She didn't answer. He waited. The rain ran down his face. "I saved your family," she said finally. The words came out smaller than she meant them to. "I didn't do it for a favor. I don't want anything." "I know," he said. "That's exactly why we need to talk." She got in the car. The door closed behind her with the soft, authoritative thunk of a vehicle that had been built with doors at the top of a long list. Adrian walked around the back and got in the other side. A driver she could not see through the partition pulled away from the curb so smoothly that the streetlight outside the window slid sideways before she felt any motion. Within a block, the restaurant was behind them, and the rain outside was a blur of red taillights and wet black pavement. Nina sat with her hands in her lap. Her apron was still tied around her waist. The little notepad she used for orders was still in its pocket. The pen was clipped to the outside. She was not, technically, off the clock. Adrian didn't speak for 2 full blocks. He was looking out his window, not at her. His hands were resting, open, on his knees. His right hand had a small scar at the base of the thumb that she had not noticed in the restaurant. His watch was plain, thin, with a black leather band, not the kind of watch she would have expected on him. She was looking at these things because she did not want to look at his face. "They're going to tell me it was the Russians," he said finally, still looking out the window. "Or the Calabrians, or the Albanians. Okay. By tomorrow morning, somebody in my organization will have the name of whoever builds that kind of device, and we'll be told it was whichever group paid that builder, and then I'll be asked what I want done about it." She didn't say anything. "The truth is," he said, "I don't know yet. I have 4 or 5 theories, some of them I like better than others." He turned his head and looked at her. "But none of them involve a waitress at Castellane named Nina Hale seeing it before my own people did. I got lucky." "You did not get lucky, Nina. Lucky would have been the bomb not existing. Lucky would have been the chef smelling the wires burning. Lucky would have been my man at the back hallway deciding not to take the envelope. You did something else." "I noticed a shape under a table." "You noticed," Adrian said slowly, "that 2 of my security had drifted. You noticed the man at 17 was watching me. You noticed his jacket and his phone and his book, and you put them together. You walked across my dining room and broke one of the oldest rules I have, and you did it with perfectly steady hands. And when I asked you how you knew what a bomb looked like, you told me you read a lot." He let the sentence sit in the car. "Nina Hale," he said, "whose brother was Daniel Hale." The inside of the car went very quiet. Outside, the city slid by. Another red light, another block. She kept her face still. She had been practicing keeping her face still for 21 months. She was good at it, but her hands, in her lap, had gone cold again. "You know who I am," she said. "I knew before your entree came out." "That's not true." "It's not exactly. I knew that you were not a waitress. I'd known that for about 6 months." She turned her head then. She couldn't help it. "You've been watching me. Castellane is my restaurant," Adrian said simply. "Not on paper, but mine. When a woman starts working there who doesn't match her job application, I hear about it. You interviewed as someone who had been a server at a Greek place on the South Side. There is no Greek place on the South Side with the name you gave. Your real resume says you have a graduate degree in comparative literature and worked in a university library for 4 years. I had someone look at you. They came back with a dead brother. I had them look at the brother. Daniel Hale, 26, jumped off a parking garage on 9th and Lenox, case closed. Yet Jules say man. He didn't jump." "No," Adrian said. "He didn't." The sentence dropped into her chest like a stone into a well. She hadn't expected it. She had expected a denial, a shrug, a change of subject. What she had not expected was the quiet, flat confirmation, with the tiniest flicker in his face of something that might have been, from a less careful man, regret. "You killed him," she said. "No." "Your people killed him." "Not mine either." "Don't—" Her voice cracked. She hated that it cracked. She steadied it hard. "Don't lie to me. Not tonight. I saved your daughter's life. If you're ever going to tell the truth about this, do it now." Adrian looked at her for a long moment. "Your brother," he said carefully, "was working for a firm that handled money for 3 people I do business with. He saw something on a ledger that he should not have been looking at. He was a smart kid, Nina." He pulled a thread. The thread led to a shell in Delaware that led to a shell in the Caymans that led to a number he recognized from another page of a report he shouldn't have been reading either. He took his concerns to the wrong man at his firm. "Who?" "A name that means nothing to you. A man named Ravel. Peter Ravel. He's been in a federal medium security facility for 14 months on an unrelated tax matter. And if it's any comfort to you, he is the man who made the phone call. He was not one of mine. The men he called were not mine. By the time the name Daniel Hale crossed my desk, your brother had been dead for 6 days, and what I was being told was that a problem had been handled. I was not asked before. I was informed after. And you didn't care." "I cared, Nina. You didn't stop it." "I couldn't stop what was already done." "You didn't avenge it." "No," Adrian said. "I did not." He didn't look away when he said it. That was almost worse than if he had. He sat there in the back of the car with the rain crawling down the window behind him, and he looked her in the face and he let her hate him for a long count of seconds. "Your brother," he said finally, "was collateral in a cleanup that I would have ordered done differently. I can tell you that honestly. I can also tell you that it would have been done. You want me to say I'm sorry he died? I am. I have a daughter. I know what it is to lose a kid without losing them in the ground. I saw my sister bury a boy when he was 19. I know that kind of quiet. And I can tell you I am sorry. That's a fact. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I wouldn't have approved his removal if it had come across my desk in time. Because I would have. And I'm not going to lie to you tonight, Nina. You've earned that much." She realized somewhere in the middle of his answer that she was crying. Not sobbing, just 2 thin lines of water down her face. Her hands were still in her lap. Her breathing was steady. She did not understand how her body was producing tears without the rest of her joining in. She wiped her cheek with the back of her wrist, and it came away wet, and she looked at her wet wrist as if it belonged to somebody else. "Stop the car," she said. "Nina? Stop the car. Let me out. Nina, listen. I saved your wife. I saved your kid. I saved 40 people who have nothing to do with any of this. I didn't do it because I forgive you. I didn't do it because I'm a good person. I did it because I saw what a bomb does in a room full of people, and I wasn't going to stand there. That's it. That's the whole thing. I'm not getting in bed with my brothers." She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Adrian did not tell the driver to stop. He didn't tell him to keep going either. He looked at her, and he waited for her to say whatever else she was going to say. "Let me out," she said again. Quieter. "I will," he said. "That's what you want. The car will take you home. Nobody will follow you. Nobody will call on you. You'll get a check in the mail for the wages Castellane owes you, and probably a bonus that will feel insulting. That's it. You can go back to your apartment and your books and the rest of whatever it is you were doing, and I won't stop you. And in a year, you'll have almost stopped checking the locks twice. Almost. Almost. She looked at him. The tears had stopped. They had not lasted long. She had, she realized, been crying for about 4 seconds. But, she said. But, Adrian agreed. But what? He turned to face her more fully. For the first time since she had gotten in the car, his hands moved. He laced them together in his lap. The scar on his right thumb disappeared between his fingers. Nina, someone tried to kill me tonight. They almost took my wife and my daughter with me. The person who did this is somebody who knew where I would be eating, at what time, at what table, and who was able to put a device in that restaurant and compromise at least one of my own men. That is not a small operation. Whoever did this is still out there. They know by now that it failed. They know I know it happened. They also know that for maybe the next 72 hours, I am going to be the most exposed I have been in 15 years. I'm going to move my family. I'm going to clean my house. But the person who did this is going to move first before I can, because they have to. And the only reason I'm alive to even be having this conversation is because a waitress with a dead brother happened to be paying closer attention to my table than my own people were. But more person. Get new people. I will. That's not the point. What's the point? The point is that the people I am going to hire to replace the ones I can't trust will, on their best day, catch what you caught tonight. Most of them, on most days, will not. They are not trained to. They are trained to shoot. You did something else. And whoever comes at me next, because they will, they're going to come smarter than tonight. They're going to come quieter. They're going to come somewhere I don't expect. What do you want, Adrian? I want, he said, somebody at the edge of my vision who sees what I don't. She laughed. It was not a nice laugh. You want to hire the girl whose brother you let die? I want, he said without flinching, to hire the only person in that room tonight who saved my child's life. The car was still moving. The city was still sliding past. A bus had pulled up next to them at a red light, and Nina could see a woman inside. On the bus, on her phone, crying, and nobody on the bus was looking at her. The world was so full of strangers quietly coming apart. I wouldn't be your waitress, Nina said slowly. That's not the job. No, I wouldn't be. Security. I don't know how to shoot a gun. Not what I'd ask you to do. I wouldn't be your mistress. Don't insult me. Sophia and I have been married since before you could drive. That's not what this is. Then what? He took a breath. Let it out. The man across the table from me tonight, the older one, his name is Sal Marchetti. He's not my guest. He's my consigliere. That's a word people in my world don't use anymore because it sounds like a movie, but there's no better word for what he is. He's the person who sits next to me and tells me when I'm wrong. He's been doing it for 22 years. He's 63. He's tired. He's going to retire next year whether I like it or not. I don't have a second Sal. I never have. I've been looking in my own way for a long time, and I haven't found one. Most of the people who want that job want it for the wrong reasons. The ones who would be good at it don't want it at all. And you think I want it? No, I think you'd hate it. That's what would make you good at it. She stared at him. You're insane, she said. Possibly. You met me 4 hours ago. I met you 7 months ago. You just didn't know. I hate you, Adrian. I know. My brother is dead because of men like you. My mother hasn't slept through a night in 2 years. My father quit his job because he couldn't concentrate. Every Sunday I call them and I listen to them pretend to be okay because pretending is the only thing they have left. And you're sitting here telling me you want me to sit at your right hand and tell you when you're wrong. You understand what that sounds like. I do. Do you? Nina, listen to me. I am not asking you to forgive anyone. I am not asking you to forget your brother. I am offering you something very specific. I'm offering you a seat at a table where decisions get made. Some of those decisions, a year from now, 2 years from now, are going to be about the kind of men who made the phone call that killed Daniel. They're going to be about the structure that let that call go through without anyone asking whether it should. You can sit at that table, or you can go back to your apartment and read more books and be exactly as powerless as you've been for 21 months, and you can tell yourself that walking away is principled. Both of those are choices. Either one I'll respect, but you should not pretend that the only clean choice is the one that leaves you on the outside. The car stopped. Nina hadn't been looking. They had pulled to the curb somewhere on a quiet side street, in front of a brownstone with a dark bay window. She did not recognize the neighborhood, or maybe she did. Maybe it was near the park. Maybe it was somewhere she had walked with Daniel once. Maybe it wasn't. Her memory had gotten strange in the last hour. "Where are we?" she said. "A friend's house. We'll wait here until my people are sure the path home is clean for you. An hour, maybe 2. You don't have to decide tonight, Nina. You don't have to decide this week. I'm going to give you a phone number. You can call it, or you can throw it away. Either way, you get to go home. Either way, you're safe." She looked at him for a long time. "You said safe," she said. "Yes." "Am I?" Adrian Voss looked at her, and something moved briefly across his face. It was there and gone. "Nina," he said quietly, "you walked up to my table tonight. You broke a rule my own men would not have broken. You are safe from me. You have my word on that, for whatever a man like me's word is worth to you. But whoever tried to put me in a box in that restaurant saw you lean down and whisper in my ear. They saw me not get in my car and drive my family home. They saw me walk a waitress out into the rain and put her in a car. Whoever they are, by tomorrow morning, they'll have your name." He opened his door. The rain came in. "So no," he said, "not from everyone." He got out. He walked around to her side. He opened her door. He held out his hand, palm up, not quite demanding, not quite offering. Nina looked at the hand. She looked at the dark brownstone. She looked back through the rear window of the car, the way they had come, at the long, wet ribbon of city glowing red and gold under its low, impossible sky. Ah, see. She thought for a second of Daniel. Not of his body, not of the parking garage, of the last time he had come to her apartment. He had sat on her couch, and he had told her a joke, and it had been a bad joke, and they had both laughed for a long time anyway. He had been wearing a blue shirt. She had not remembered the shirt until right this second. She took Adrian Voss's hand. She got out of the car. The brownstone was warmer than it looked from the street. Adrian unlocked the front door with a key he pulled from his coat pocket. Not a phone, not a code, just a small brass key on a ring with nothing else on it. And Nina found herself registering that detail the way she had spent 7 months registering everything else. A man who had a dozen houses did not carry a dozen keys. He carried the ones he used. This was a place he used. The entry was narrow and paneled in some dark wood that had seen a century of people hanging their coats on it. An umbrella stand held one black umbrella. A console table held a bowl with nothing in it. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old books. Adrian walked ahead of her down a short hallway into a sitting room that was lit by a single lamp on a side table, and he turned on no more lights. He crossed to a small cabinet, poured himself 2 fingers of something amber, and did not offer her one. "Sit down," he said. "Please." She sat on the edge of a leather chair that was older than she was. Her apron was still tied around her waist. Her hands were still cold. Adrian stood by the cabinet with his drink. He didn't drink it. He just held it, like a prop he had decided he needed. "Sal is upstairs," he said. "He'll be down in a minute. I want you to meet him the way he actually is, not the way he pretended to be at dinner. He pretends a lot. It's his gift, and mine should be what?" Adrian almost smiled. Not quite. "Noticing," he said. "Just keep doing what you've been doing. It's the rarest skill I have ever paid for, and I have been trying to pay for it my whole life." Footsteps came down the stairs, unhurried, the tread of a man who carried weight on his knees. Sal Marchetti appeared in the doorway of the sitting room with his suit jacket off, his tie loosened, a tablet in one hand and a pair of reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He looked at Nina. His eyes were pale gray, and they had the slightly watery patience of a very old dog that had seen 3 generations of puppies come and go. "Miss Hale," he said. His voice was gravel. He walked to the other chair and sat down, slowly, with the small, controlled wince of a man whose back didn't like the stairs anymore. "I owe you a thank you I don't have the words for, so I'm going to skip that and tell you what we know. Is that all right?" "Yes." "Good. Adrian, sit down. You're hovering." Adrian sat. Sal set the tablet on his knee. He did not turn it on. The device, he said, was a homemade but professional build. Military-grade plastic explosive, detonator wired for both remote and timer. The timer was set for 8:52. The remote was the phone held by the man you identified. If the phone had gone through, it would have skipped the timer. We recovered the device intact. We recovered the man. He is currently in a basement that is not this one, and he is being asked questions. Nina's stomach moved. Asked how, she said. Sal looked at her. He didn't answer for a second. Miss Hale, he said finally, I'm going to assume because you are a smart young woman and because you have chosen to be in this room tonight that you do not require me to lie to you. So the answer to your question is, we are asking him in whatever way he requires. You're torturing him. We're questioning him. That's the same thing. No, Sal said gently. It isn't. Sometimes a man tells you everything you want to know over a cup of coffee. Sometimes he doesn't. We start with the coffee. We don't always get to stay there, but we start there. That's a thing you tell yourself. Yes, Sal said. It is. Most of the useful things we tell ourselves are things we tell ourselves. He held her eyes for a moment. There was no apology in them, and no pride either. Just the tired, unflinching patience of a man who had made his peace with being a certain kind of person a long time ago and did not require her to make peace with it too. What has he said? Nina asked. Nothing yet. He's scared, which is useful, but he's not the kind of scared that talks. He's the kind of scared that is more afraid of whoever hired him than of us. That tells us something already. What? That whoever hired him has a reputation. Professionals don't take contracts on men like Adrian unless the payer is known. And the men who are known enough to pay for a job like this, there are maybe 6 of them in this country. 4 of them would not have tried. 2 of them might. Who? Sal glanced at Adrian. Adrian nodded once. A man named Teodor Varga, Sal said. Based out of the River District, runs a trucking concern that moves more than trucks. He and Adrian have had, call it a Cold War, for about 3 years. It has been escalating quietly since the spring, and a woman named Iris Cade, who used to be one of ours. Something in Adrian's face moved when Sal said the name. It was a small thing, a tightening in the muscle under his jaw. Nina saw it and filed it. Used to be ours, Nina said. She was with us for 11 years, Sal said. She came up under me. She was the only person Adrian was ever going to consider for the role I'm about to leave, before she left herself. She walked 3 years ago. Disagreement about methods. Took about 1/5 of our West Side operation with her when she went. And you let her. It was that or a war I did not want to fight in the middle of a federal investigation, Adrian said, speaking for the first time in several minutes. So yes, I let her. And now she wants the rest. If it's her, and it might not be. We don't know yet. That's why we need the man in the basement. Nina looked down at her own hands. They had uncurled from each other somewhere in the last minute. That was something. Why are you telling me all of this? She said. Because you asked, Sal said simply. And because if you are going to think about Adrian's offer seriously, you need to know what you're thinking about. You are not being invited to a cocktail party, Miss Hale. You are being invited to a war council. That word, cocktail party, I use it because it is the opposite of what this is. A cocktail party has rules everybody agrees on and ends at a set time. This has neither. If you come into something that has no off switch. I'm telling you this because Adrian will not. Adrian tells people what he thinks will bring them closer. I tell them what will make them leave if they are going to leave. That's a big part of the job I did for 22 years, and if you take it, it will be a big part of yours. Nina looked at him for a long moment. His face was kind. That was the surprising part. It was not a face that had been kind to every person it had ever looked at, and she was not stupid enough to forget that. But it was kind to her right now, in this room, and she had a sudden, unwanted, embarrassing understanding of why a woman named Iris Cade might once have loved him like a father. How old were you, Nina said, when you started doing this? 26. And you're 63. Yes. And you're tired. Yes. And you want me to take your chair. I want somebody to. If it is you, I will be relieved. If it is not you, I will keep looking until I am dead. Adrian will not accept a bad second. He would rather have no second at all. That is the thing I have the least patience with about him, if you want to know the truth. A man who builds something the size of what he has built and refuses to name a successor is a man who has not fully accepted that he will someday die. And every man who has not accepted that dies sooner than he planned. Adrian snorted softly into his drink. Sal, he said, please. No, Adrian, she needs to hear it from somebody who isn't you. You are too handsome and too persuasive, and you have that voice. I am old and ugly, and my voice sounds like gravel. She'll listen to me differently. It's a gift. Let me use it. Nina, to her own astonishment, laughed. It was a small laugh. It came out before she could stop it, and it surprised her so much that she put her hand over her mouth. Sal looked pleased. There, he said. That's the first human sound you've made in this room. Good. Adrian, get the girl some water. She's been through something, and we are not peasants. Adrian got her water. She drank it. It was cold, and it tasted like the inside of a glass bottle, which was an expensive thing to taste like. She set the glass down on a coaster she had not realized was waiting for it. I have questions, she said. Please. If I say no, tonight, right now, I walk out of this house, what happens? Practically, Sal said, a car takes you home. We put 2 men on your street in rotation until we know whether whoever came for Adrian is also going to come for you. That could be a week. It could be a month. If at any point in that window you call the number Adrian is going to give you, we come get you and we keep you alive. If you don't call, we stand down after 30 days and you go back to whatever life you were building before tonight, with our apologies for any inconvenience and a financial arrangement that I will personally guarantee is generous without being insulting. Insulting how? Enough to make a difference. Not enough to look like a payoff. Sal's job, Adrian said, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Includes knowing the exact dollar amount where gratitude becomes condescension. He's never wrong about it. Second question, Nina said. If I say yes, then your life changes by tomorrow morning, Sal said. You do not go home. You do not go back to your apartment. We collect your things. We move you into a residence of ours for a minimum of 6 weeks, maybe longer, while Adrian's current security situation resolves. You are given a cover identity for any public purpose. You are given a phone we control. You start learning. Most of what you learn in the first 2 months is not interesting. It's names, hundreds of names. Who works for whom? Who used to work for whom? Who's feuding with whom? Who owes whom? Who's afraid of whom? It's the kind of thing that would make most people quit in the first week. And after 2 months. After 2 months, if you haven't quit, you sit next to Adrian in meetings. You don't speak at first. You watch. You listen. You take it in. And after enough meetings, you start whispering into the ear of a man who has spent his whole life not listening to anyone, and you find out whether he will actually listen to you. He won't always. Oh, he won't ever, in the beginning. He'll nod. He'll smile. He'll thank you politely and do what he was going to do anyway. And if you are good, Miss Hale, you will correct him 3 or 4 times in those first 6 months. Small things, and you will be right enough of those times that a year from now, he will not make a call without looking at your face first. That is how it works. That is how it worked with me. It took 4 years. I don't have 4 years of patience. Nobody does. You do it anyway. She looked at Adrian. He hadn't said much in the last few minutes. He was watching her over the rim of his glass, and his face, without her being able to say how, had settled into something that looked less like a crime lord and more like a man who was very tired and had almost lost his daughter. Third question, she said. Go on. Daniel? She said the name and she felt the whole room register it. Sal did not flinch, but his eyes went quiet. Adrian set his drink down. Daniel, she said again, if I say yes, if I walk into your house and I learn your names and I sit at your table, at some point I'm going to find out who made the call. I'm going to find out the names of the men who waited for him on that parking garage. I'm going to find out if they are still breathing. What happens then? That, Sal said carefully, is the hardest question you have asked tonight. Try. He looked at Adrian. Adrian nodded again. Miss Hale, I will tell you what I think. Adrian can tell you what he thinks separately, because it may not be the same. I think that if you come into this work with the explicit purpose of finding those men and ending them, you will find them, and you will end them, and it will not give you 1/10 of what you think it will give you. I have watched grief do this to people for 40 years. It lies about what it will feel like to get the thing it thinks it wants. Very few of the people I have watched follow that road to the end have walked off of it looking like people I recognized. Most of them have lost whatever it was about them that made them worth putting in the chair in the first place. That's not an answer, Sal. No. The answer is this. The men who killed your brother will not die old in their beds. That is a promise I can make to you tonight, and it is a promise that is easier to keep than you think, because men like that are in a line of work that kills them on its own schedule. Some of them are already dead. You'll find the names if you look, and you'll find that 2 of them went into the river in a car in September, and a third is doing 19 years for something unrelated. Peter Ravel, the man at your brother's firm, is never walking out of that facility. Adrian has seen to it in ways that do not involve any of us laying a hand on him. So, there are 2 or 3 names left. If, when you find them, you want those names handled, I suspect Adrian will handle them, whether you ask or not, because of what you did for his family tonight. And if I am still around when that happens, I will tell you what I am telling you now, which is that it will not feel the way you think it will feel. That is not a reason not to do it. It is only a reason to not build your life around it. Nina was quiet for a long time. Adrian, she said finally, without looking at him, what would you say? He answered right away. That surprised her. I would say Sal is right about almost everything and wrong about one thing. He's right that revenge is smaller than grief expects it to be. He's wrong that you shouldn't build anything around it. You should build something, just don't build that. Build something that means Daniel was the last person in your family who had to die because some accountant pulled a thread. Nobody wanted pulled. Build something that ends the kind of thing that ended him. That's bigger than the 3 men left on your list. It's a long job. It'll take the rest of your life if you want it to. But it is a thing you can actually do. It is a thing I can help you do. And it is a thing, I'll say this to you once, Nina, and not again, that I have wanted to do for longer than I have admitted to Sal. Sal raised an eyebrow. Apparently this was news to him. What? Adrian said. I'm allowed a private thought. You're allowed too many of them. That's also part of why you need her. Nina sat in the leather chair and looked at her hands. Her hands looked like hands. She turned them over and looked at the palms. She looked at the little crease at the base of her thumb, where she'd burned herself on a skillet in her first month at Castellane, and the scar had never fully faded. She thought about Daniel's blue shirt. She thought about her mother's voice on the phone last Sunday, the small, false brightness of it. She thought about the man in the basement somewhere, the one who had been willing to watch 40 people die tonight to collect a paycheck, and she tried to feel bad about him and could not. That, she understood, was probably the answer. I'm not saying yes, she said. Okay. I'm not saying no. Okay. I need to call my mother. You can call her from here, Adrian said. The line is clean. Not tonight. She'd hear it in my voice and she'd come unglued. Tomorrow. Tomorrow is fine. And I need to sleep. There's a room upstairs. Sheets are clean. I had the house aired out last week. Why? Adrian didn't answer for a second. Because I knew we were due, he said finally. Not tonight specifically, but soon. When you've been doing this long enough, you feel the air change before a storm. I felt it for about 2 weeks. I'd had the house opened up for no reason I could tell Sophia. Probably I was getting ready to send her and Lena here, and I just hadn't admitted it yet. You felt it. I felt it. And you went to dinner anyway. I went to dinner, Adrian said, because my wife wanted to celebrate our daughter getting into the school she wanted, and because I do not run my life around the men who want to kill me. If I did, they would have already won. I go to dinner. I go to my daughter's recitals. I go to the store. I am not going to live in a box. That was a choice I made a long time ago, and I have not regretted it. And I will not regret it tonight either, because if I had stayed home tonight, I would not be sitting here with the only person in that restaurant who was not bought or blind, and I would never have known you existed. So no, I do not regret the dinner. He said it evenly. Nina did not know, and did not particularly want to examine whether she believed him. There was something in the certainty of it that made her both trust him more and fear him more at once, and that, she suspected, was the permanent shape of what Adrian Voss did to a person. Sal stood up. It took him 2 tries. His knee popped audibly. "I'm going to bed," he announced. "Miss Hale, the upstairs bedroom on the left is yours for the night. There are clothes in the closet that should fit close enough for tomorrow. Nothing fancy. A sweater and some jeans. Adrian had someone guess your size. Sal. Adrian, she was going to find out eventually that you plan ahead. It's better she finds out now. Sal. Good night, Miss Hale. Welcome, provisionally, to the most exhausting job you have never signed up for. I hope you take it. If you don't, I hope you have a long and boring life, and I mean that as a compliment." He walked slowly out of the sitting room and up the stairs. Nina listened to his steps until a door closed. Then it was just her and Adrian and the one lamp. "He likes you," Adrian said. "He doesn't know me. He's seen you for an hour. He likes you. He's not wrong, usually. Is he right about everything he said?" "Mostly. He's wrong that I'm too handsome. I'm medium." She laughed again. 2 in one night. She didn't know what to do with her own laughter. She had not heard it this often in a long time, and she felt a low, cold, familiar pull of guilt at the sound. The same pull she had felt every time she had laughed in the last 21 months. The sense that laughter was a betrayal of somebody she had loved. Adrian watched her face. "He'd be mad at you, you know," he said quietly. "What?" "Your brother. If he thought you'd stopped laughing because of him. I didn't know him. But from what I've read of him, from what I've been told, he'd be mad." "You don't know what he'd be." "No, I don't. You do. I'm just saying, for whatever it's worth." "It's worth something," she admitted after a moment. "I don't know how much. But something." They sat in the lamplight. Outside, the rain had finally slowed. Somewhere in the house, a radiator ticked. Nina, who had been hearing ticks in her head for 2 hours, twitched at the sound, and then she laughed at herself for twitching, and Adrian, to her mild surprise, laughed too. It was a short, quiet laugh. It was the first sound she had heard from him that was not considered. "Go to bed, Nina." "Yeah." "We'll talk in the morning." "Yeah." She stood up. Her legs felt strange. Her whole body felt strange. It felt, she realized, like it had been holding its breath for 2 years and had just, in the last hour, started taking small test breaths. She walked to the doorway. She stopped. She turned. "Adrian?" "Yes." "The man, in the basement." He looked at her levelly. "Yes." "I don't want him killed." Adrian did not react. "I mean it," she said. "I don't want him killed. Not because I care about him. I don't. I watched him raise that phone tonight. But if the first thing that happens because of me, the first change in how anything goes, is that a man gets killed in a basement, I'm not going to be able to live with that. I'm not. I know what you said. I know what Sal said. I know my hands aren't clean and I know they're going to get dirtier if I stay, but not like this. Not this one." Adrian watched her for a long moment. "He tried to kill my daughter, Nina." "I know." "He would have cashed the check and gone home to a steak dinner." "I know. And you're asking me to let him live. I'm asking you to make him talk without killing him. And then, when he has talked, I'm asking you to turn him over to the federal attorney's office with a packet of information that closes 3 other cases at once and buys you goodwill you'll spend later. I read a lot. I told you." Adrian's face did something she had not seen it do yet. It opened. It was a small thing. The smallest change. But the hardness that had lived under his eyes since the restaurant loosened, just at the edges, and he looked at her with something that was not gratitude exactly. A man like him didn't do gratitude the way other men did, but was in the same family. It was closer to recognition. "You've been thinking about this offer a lot faster than you're pretending," he said. "Maybe. That was a very specific ask." "I told you. I read a lot." "Okay, Nina. Okay. I'll make a call. The man lives. He talks. And we'll see about the federal attorney. We'll see? Don't push it on the first night." She almost smiled. "Fair." She turned and she climbed the stairs of a brownstone that belonged to a dead man or a front company or somebody named something else entirely. And at the top of the stairs she found a hallway with 3 doors, and the middle door was ajar. And behind it there was a bathroom with a stack of folded towels on the counter and a toothbrush still in its cardboard. And on the little vanity next to the sink, somebody, some woman she had never met, Some version of Sophia Voss, or a woman hired by Sophia Voss, had left a hair tie, a small jar of face cream, and a pair of clean white pajamas folded on the bath mat. Nina stood in the doorway of that bathroom for a long time. She took off her apron. She laid it on the counter. She looked at her own face in the mirror, and she did not recognize the woman there, and she also recognized her completely. And both of those things were true at the same time. She thought, for no good reason, of the detective with the bad dye job who had put her hand on Nina's shoulder and said, "Sometimes we just don't know what people are carrying, honey." "Yeah," Nina said quietly to the woman in the mirror. "Sometimes we do, though." She turned on the water. She washed her face. She brushed her teeth with a brand new toothbrush she had not paid for, in a house she did not own, in a life that had, in the last 4 hours, stopped being any of the lives she had pictured for herself. She went to bed. She did not fall asleep for a long time. When she finally did, she dreamed of Daniel laughing on her couch in a blue shirt, and when she woke up, it was still dark, and the rain had stopped, and somewhere on the floor below her, 2 men whose names would be half of her life now, were speaking in low voices about what to do next. Nina lay very still in the bed. She listened. She did not move. She did not close her eyes again. She listened, and she started learning. The voices below her belonged to men who had been awake for a long time. Nina could tell because they had stopped bothering to project anything. There were no performances in them, no edges pressed up against each other for show, just the low, worn-down rhythm of 2 men who had been trading pieces of a hard conversation for hours. She could not hear the words clearly through the floorboards. She could hear the shape of them. Adrian's voice was a flat, low note, even, almost musical. Sal's voice broke and rasped and came back. Every once in a while there was silence, and then the soft clink of a glass being set down, and then one of them would start again. She lay in the bed in the borrowed pajamas, and she listened to the shape of it, and she understood something she had not understood yesterday. These 2 men did not just work together, they thought together. The pauses between them were not pauses of waiting for the other to finish. They were pauses of a single idea being handed across and turned over and handed back, the way 2 carpenters working on the same joint would pass a chisel without looking up. 22 years of a conversation she had walked into at hour 1. Somewhere around 4 in the morning, the front door opened and closed. A car started in the street, drove off. Silence for a while. Then the front door opened and closed again, and new steps came in, heavier, a man breathing through his mouth. Somebody who had been out in the cold. Somebody who had come to report. The conversation downstairs changed pitch. Sal's voice came up briefly, sharp, a question she could almost make out. The new man answered low, then quiet again. Nina stared at the ceiling. The pajamas were softer than anything she owned. That bothered her in a way she didn't want to think about. She got out of bed at 5:40. She couldn't sleep, and she wasn't going to pretend anymore. She washed her face again, put on the sweater and jeans that had been left for her. The jeans were a half size too big, which was fine, and the sweater was a soft gray that fit better than it should have. And she went downstairs in her bare feet because she wasn't going to put on shoes yet. Not in somebody else's house. Not on a morning she hadn't figured out how to live through. The sitting room was empty. The lamp was off. The glass Adrian had not drunk from was still on the side table, and the amber liquid in it was exactly the level it had been at when she'd gone up. She registered that too. Voices came from the back of the house. She followed them into a kitchen that was small and bright and smelled like coffee that had been brewed twice. Adrian was at the counter in a white undershirt and the same suit pants he had worn last night, his jacket over the back of a chair. Sal was at the little round table with his hands around a mug. A third man sat across from Sal, and he was the one who had come in an hour ago. Mid-40s, thick in the shoulders, black wool coat still on, a short trim beard, a face that had been in a fight or two, and remembered them all. They stopped talking when she came in. "Miss Hale," Sal said. "Nina's fine." "Nina, coffee?" "Yes." Adrian poured her a mug without asking how she took it. Black, no sugar. He got it right, which was either luck or another small thing he had noticed about her over 7 months. She didn't ask which. "This is Pax," Adrian said. "He runs the kind of thing we needed to run last night. He's been at the basement since we got there." Pax looked at her with gray, patient eyes. He did not smile. He did not frown. He did the smallest possible incline of the head. "Ma'am." "Nina." "Nina." What did the man say? Pax glanced at Adrian. Adrian nodded. He talked around 4:30, Pax said. Took longer than we hoped. He's not a brave man, but he had a family to be afraid for. We convinced him his family was safer with us than with the person who sent him. That was true. That's usually the lever when it's there to pull. You didn't? No, ma'am. Nina, we did not. Adrian called me on the way over from Castellane and told me we were not going to, and we did not. I'll tell you honestly, I argued with him about it for about 30 seconds, and then he told me the reason, and I stopped arguing. What reason? He said you'd asked. She looked at Adrian. He was pouring himself more coffee and not looking at her. That was enough, she said. It was enough for me, ma'am. Why? Pax considered her for a moment. Because in 16 years working for Mr. Voss, he said, I have never heard him say those 4 words about anyone outside his own family. And in 16 years I have learned not to waste time asking him why he does the rare things. I just do them. Nina drank her coffee. It was hot. It was very good. That also bothered her. Okay, she said. What did he say? Sal looked at his tablet. He had his reading glasses down on his nose now. He looked, in the morning light, older than he had looked last night. The skin under his eyes was bruised and papery, and his hands around the mug had a faint tremor that had not been there in the sitting room. She wondered how much he'd slept. She suspected none. Our man's name is Alec Corbin. He's 37. He's got a wife and a 6-year-old in a small town about 90 minutes north of here. Pax has already put people on them, quietly, for their protection. Corbin is a contractor. He builds devices. He has been doing it for 12 years, mostly for people overseas. He came back to the country about 3 years ago and has been taking domestic work. He has never been the trigger man before. He didn't want to be the trigger man last night. He was told by the man who hired him that the device was the job, and that somebody else would push the button. When the other man didn't show, Corbin was told over the phone very firmly that he was the other man now, or he was going to have a problem at home. That's why he was in the restaurant. And who hired him? Not Varga. She looked up. Iris? She said. Iris, Sal said. Adrian set his mug down on the counter. He didn't say anything. His jaw did a thing. Corbin met her twice, Sal said. Once in the city, once at a diner off the interstate. He knew her as Alice. The description matches Iris. The voice matches Iris. She paid him in 2 installments, one in cash and one in what I'm going to charitably call gold. The first installment came through a runner Pax has been watching for months. The runner's going to have a very bad afternoon. Not dead. Not dead, Nina. We heard you. Okay. The interesting part, Sal said, and he tapped the tablet, is what she told Corbin the job was. She told him it was a private contract, a personal matter between 2 people who had been in business together once. She told him Adrian had killed somebody close to her, and she was returning the favor. Adrian's hand, which had been resting on the edge of the counter, closed slowly into a fist and then opened again. Nina watched that hand. She understood, in the same way she had understood the bomb, that the person who was being named in that kitchen had once been somebody Adrian had loved in some way that was not romantic, but not small either. She did not ask. She filed it. Did she tell him what exactly? She said. She told him it was a man named Tomas. He was 15. Her brother. Her son. Nina set her coffee down. Adrian, she said, did you? No. Adrian, I didn't kill her son, Nina. I did not order it. I did not ask for it. I did not know it was going to happen. But I was the reason it happened. That's a distinction that is true, and that doesn't matter. Tomas was 15. He was in a car that had me in it 10 minutes before. The men who put the bomb in that car thought it still had me in it. They were wrong. They'd already pulled the trigger. I got out at a stop 3 miles back, and I walked into a building, and Tomas took my seat because he was a kid who always took the best seat in whatever car Iris brought him to. Because he was 15 and he thought he was an adult and nobody ever told him no. He died on the freeway. Iris was in the front. She was burned on the left side of her body from her hip to her jaw. She spent 5 months in a hospital. When she came out, she was not the same person, and the person she was now was a person who blamed me, and she was not wrong to. That was 4 years ago. And she left a year after. Yes? And you let her? I let her because I owed her a debt I could not pay with anything else. You owe her a debt, and now she's trying to kill your family. Yes. And you're going to have to decide what to do about her. Yes. Nina looked at her coffee. She looked at the three men sitting or standing in a kitchen that had no dish towels on the handles, no magnets on the fridge, no photographs anywhere. A house that existed for this. She thought about Iris Cade, who she had never met, and she tried to find inside herself the certainty that Iris Cade was a monster, and she could not quite find it. And that, she understood, was the first of a long series of inconveniences that this job was going to be full of. Okay, she said. What happens now? Sal looked at Adrian. Adrian looked at Pax. Pax looked at his coffee. Now, Adrian said, we have to decide whether to move on her before she moves again. She knows by now that last night failed. She knows by now that we have Corbin. She'll assume Corbin talked. She has maybe 18 hours before we reach her physically, if we move, and about a day longer than that if we go through intermediaries. She'll use that time. She'll either run and set up again in a year, which I don't think she'll do because she's past running, or she'll throw something else at us faster than we expect before her window closes. I think she'll do the second thing. Sal thinks she'll do the second thing. Pax thinks she'll do the second thing. So the question is how we get ahead of her. Uchamam isatoshmam chate. And what the options are. Kill her, Adrian said. Or not. Sal made a small sound that was either agreement or indigestion. Nina couldn't tell. If we kill her, Adrian said, we end it today. We move a team, we find her, we finish it, and by tomorrow morning the threat is gone, and the men who are quietly taking her money are looking for a new employer. Clean as these things go. It solves the immediate problem. It creates a smaller, long-term problem, which is that Iris has friends in Europe who will want to know what happened and why, and I will have to spend the next year explaining it to them. And if we don't kill her, we need a different way to make her stop. She's been hurting me on her own schedule for 3 years, quietly, and I have been letting her. That's been a decision I made. Last night was her violating the edges of that decision. I could tell her through channels that the truce is still on if she stops. She might stop. Or she might take it as weakness and accelerate. Sal thinks she'll stop. I'm not sure. Pax thinks she'll accelerate. Nobody in this room thinks it's a sure bet either way. You're asking me, Nina said slowly, on day one. I'm asking you, Adrian said, on the morning after you saved my daughter, to sit in the chair. You don't get to ease in. Sal and I have been arguing about this for 3 hours. We're going in circles. You walked in here on 0 sleep. You have fewer of our preconceptions than either of us, and you noticed a bomb under my table when 8 trained men missed it. I would like to know what you see. She wanted, briefly and fiercely, to leave. To stand up and walk out of the kitchen and up the stairs and out the front door in bare feet with the borrowed clothes on her body, and to keep walking until she found a bus station and took a bus anywhere that was not here. The desire was clean and simple, and it lasted about 4 seconds, and then it was gone. And underneath it there was something else, something she did not want to look at too closely, something that was curious, something that was almost excited. She drank her coffee. She set the mug down. She folded her hands on the table the way she had folded them in graduate seminars, and she thought. Tell me about her, she said. Not the resume, the person. Sal and Adrian looked at each other. Sal, Adrian said, you raised her. I did. Sal took off his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. Iris came to us when she was 23. Her father had worked for mine. She was smart in a way that made you feel watched, even across a dinner table. She had a temper she controlled mostly, but when it got loose, it was a thing. She loved her kid more than anything she ever loved in her life. That's important. She was generous with the people under her. She was cruel to the ones she thought had crossed her. She was proud, and her pride is the part of her that will kill her eventually. She has never, not once in the 11 years I knew her well, walked away from a fight she thought she was winning. She has walked away from a fight she thought she was losing, but she does not believe she is losing this one. That is where we start. Does she think she's winning? She thinks she has us on the back foot. She thinks Adrian is distracted, which he has been, with a federal matter that is closing in the spring. She thinks the bomb was the opening shot of a longer operation. She thinks the second shot will land before we have our feet under us. What's the second shot? We don't know. Corbin doesn't know. He was compartmentalized. What would you guess? Sal looked at Adrian. Adrian spoke. I would guess Lena. Nina felt the word go through the room like a cold draft. Your daughter, she said. My daughter. Why? Because Iris lost her son. Because the worst thing she can do to me is not to kill me. The worst thing she can do to me is to make me live through what she lived through. She won't come at Sophia. Sophia would hurt me, but it wouldn't balance the ledger in her head. Lena would. Lena is exactly the age Tomas was, within a year. I've been expecting this for 3 years. It's why Lena has 2 of our people with her at that school, and a 3rd in her orbit she doesn't know about. It's why my wife has not slept in our main residence for 6 months without at least one of Pax's people on the premises. Iris has known that. That's part of why she hasn't come at Lena yet. She's been waiting for an opening. She thinks last night created one. Because you're exposed. Because I'm bleeding people. 2 of my own were on her payroll last night. I'm going to have to fire or handle 8 or 9 more before I trust the household again, and she knows that. She knows my attention is going to be on cleaning my own house, which is exactly the window in which a move on Lena would be hardest to stop. When? Today. Tomorrow. 3 days at the outside. Where's Lena right now? Upstate. Sophia drove her up during the night. They're at a property that is not on paper. 4 of Pax's best are with them. They will not come back into the city for at least a week. Iris doesn't know where they are. She won't find them in that window. But she will try, and she will spend resources trying, and every resource she spends on finding them is a resource she doesn't spend on the second shot, which means we either get more time or the shot comes sloppier. Good. Good that it comes sloppier? Good that you bought time. Adrian looked at her. Go on, Nina. She looked at her hands. She made herself think. I don't think you should kill her today. Sal exhaled. It was the first sound he had made in a few minutes. Why? Adrian said. Because you're not ready to do it cleanly and you know it. You'd be doing it out of the adrenaline of last night. You'd be doing it because your daughter is away from home. You'd be doing it because Sal is tired and wants to finish this before he retires. All of those are reasons you'd regret in a month. Agreed. Go on. But I don't think you should leave her alone either, because she won't stop, Sal. You know her. Does she stop? Sal's eyes were on her. They were thoughtful. She does not stop, he said, unless she has a reason that she herself accepts as a reason, and she will not accept a reason that comes from Adrian. Because in her mind, he is not a person who can give her a reason. He is the thing she is acting against. Any reason from him is a lie. Then the reason can't come from Adrian. No. It has to come from somebody else. Somebody she would hear. Yes. Who does she hear? Sal looked at the table for a long time. Me, he said finally. Maybe. On a good day. Not likely enough to bet a child's life on. Who else? Her brother. Her father. But he's dead. A woman named Beatrice, who was her closest friend for about a decade, and who broke with her over the methods thing at the same time I did. Beatrice lives in Lisbon now. She has a new life. She has made it clear she is done with us. I have not asked her for anything in 3 years. Would she come? Sal was quiet. For a child, he said. For Lena, maybe, if she was asked the right way, by the right person, at the right time. Then that's what you do, Nina said. Today, before noon. You call Beatrice, not Adrian, you. You tell her what happened last night. You tell her what you think Iris is going to do next. You tell her that the only person in the world who can get to Iris before she does something she can't come back from is her. You don't ask her to forgive you. You don't ask her to come back. You ask her to make one phone call. You ask her to tell Iris, in whatever words Iris would listen to, that if she takes Lena, Beatrice personally will not speak to her again. You said Iris was proud. The thing pride is most afraid of is being left entirely alone. If she loses Beatrice over this, on top of everybody else, she stops. Nina, Adrian said, I'm not finished. Okay. While Sal is making that call, you send Iris a message. Not through me, not through Pax, through a neutral. Somebody you both still respect. You tell her you know she did last night. You tell her you are not going to move on her today, not because you can't, but because you will not let her turn you into the man who killed Tomas. You tell her the truce is still on your end, if she wants it. You tell her that if she does anything to Lena, the truce ends, and you will come, and you will not stop. You do not threaten her otherwise. You do not insult her. You give her an out. You give her a way to keep her pride and stop. Adrian was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. And if she doesn't stop, he said, then you do what you were going to do. Just like that. Just like that. And I have not lost anything in the meantime? You've lost a day. 1 day. That's the price of doing it in a way you can live with in 5 years. I'm not asking you to be a saint, Adrian. I'm asking you to not be stupid. If you kill her today, you put 3 years of quiet between you and the federal matter at risk, because there will be a body of a woman who was in your organization for 11 years, and that will get federal attention, and it will get it right now. If you kill her in a week, with a reason and a paper trail and some distance, the attention is different. If you don't have to kill her at all, even better. You wanted me to notice things. I'm noticing that nobody in this kitchen has said the word federal in 40 minutes, and you are going to be indicted in some fashion within 90 days unless Sal is lying to me about the timeline, which he is not. You can't afford to do this the loud way. There was a long silence in the kitchen. Sal leaned back in his chair and looked at the ceiling. He whistled, very softly, through his teeth. Adrian, he said. Yes, Sal. You understand what just happened? I think so. She just sat down, without being asked twice. I know. And she's right. I know that too. Pax for the first time smiled. It was a small smile, and it went away quickly. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to start on the neutral, he said. You two sort out Beatrice. I'll tell Corbin we're moving him to a safer basement, and I'll stop breaking his hand. He stood up. He nodded at Nina. Ma'am? Nina? I'll remember. He went. Sal looked at Nina for a long time after Pax left. Adrian did not. Adrian had turned to face the window over the sink and was looking out of it at a small bare back garden where a crow was standing on a piece of flagstone with great dignity. Nina, Sal said quietly. Yes. I am going to tell you 2 things, and then I am going to make the hardest phone call I have made in 10 years, so please pay attention. Okay. The first thing is that what you just did in this kitchen is what the job is. Not every day, not every week. But when it matters, that is what it is. You walked in on the coldest version of a question, and you found the warm answer without pretending the cold one didn't exist. That is very rare. I have seen maybe 4 people in my life do it under that kind of pressure at that kind of age. One of them was a priest, who was not good at the parts of his job that priests are mostly supposed to be good at, and he drank himself to death at 50. 2 of them were women. One of them was Iris before she lost Tomas. So do not mistake what I am saying to you as flattery. I am saying it as a warning. People who can do this are not happy people. They see too much. They do not get to put it down. Okay. The second thing is that I said last night I would tell you what would make you leave if you were going to leave. I did that. I meant it. I will keep doing that. I am not going to be your friend, Nina. Not in the way that word usually gets used. I am going to be the person in the room who tells you when you are wrong, and I am going to do it whether you want to hear it or not, because that was my job for Adrian for 22 years, and it is now, as of this morning, my job for you. If you ever need me to stop, you will have to tell me. I will not notice on my own. I have never been good at noticing. But he held her eyes. His were tired. His were kind. Neither of those things she understood were excuses. Sal, she said. Yes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Make the call good. Sal, do one thing for me. Name it. Beatrice. When you call her, don't ask for Adrian first. Don't ask for the organization first. Ask for Lena first. Ask her to do it for a kid. Everything else after. That'll make the difference. I can hear it in the way you described her. Sal looked at her. His eyes got a little wet. Not much. Not enough for him to have to do anything about it. He stood up. He put his glasses back on. He patted her once, gently, on the shoulder with the flat of his hand, and then he walked out of the kitchen without saying anything else. Nina was alone in the kitchen with Adrian and the crow outside and her 3rd cup of coffee. He did not turn around for a long time. When he finally did, he was looking at her the way he had looked at her last night in the car, after she had asked him not to kill Corbin. The look that was almost recognition. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Do what?" "Be that good this fast." "I wasn't being good. I was being scared." "Of what?" "Of watching you make the wrong call because your daughter had been away from home for 9 hours and you hadn't slept. And I'd spent 3 years getting here, and I wasn't going to watch the man I'd finally got in a room with blow the one thing I was here to do in the first week." He almost smiled. It was the second half smile she had pulled out of him. She was starting to get a sense of the shape of his real one. It was narrower than she had expected. "What were you here to do, Nina?" "I don't know yet. I thought I did. I came here to ruin you, or to watch you ruin yourself and take notes. And now I think I'm here to keep you from ruining the thing you could still build, which is not a thing I forgive you for, by the way. I'm not saying any of this because I forgive you. I'm saying it because I read a lot, and because my mother is going to get a phone call from me this afternoon, and I need to be able to make it without throwing up, and because Sal was right. You're about to get yourself indicted and killed in the same week unless somebody in your orbit tells you to slow down. And I will be the person who tells you that. Not because I like you, but because what I want to do with my life, which is to ruin the machine that killed Daniel, I can't do by myself. I need you, and you need me, because you have been needing somebody like me for longer than you have admitted to Sal." Adrian looked at her. "That is a very specific list of reasons. I made it last night, in the bathroom. It's good work." "I know." They stood there. The crow outside bounced once and stayed where it was. "Nina." "Yes." "My word to you, the one I offered last night. I want to add to it." "Don't add too much. I won't believe it. Just this. If you stay, I will never lie to you. I will keep things from you sometimes when I think you aren't ready for them. I will tell you when I'm doing that. I will not pretend. If I ever lie to you outright, you walk. No consequences, no men on your street, no arrangement. You walk and you keep whatever you have learned, and I trust you to use it the way your conscience tells you to. That's the deal. That's the one I can actually keep." She thought about it. "Okay," she said. "Okay. One more thing. Name it. When you call Iris, through the neutral, I want to write the message. Nina, you already know what's in your head. You've been carrying it for 3 years. You'll put too much of yourself in it, or too little, and either one will get Lena killed. I don't know Iris. I never met her son. I'm not carrying what you're carrying. Let me write it. You can edit, but let me write it." Adrian looked at her for a long moment. His jaw did that thing again. Then he nodded, once, slowly. "Write it," he said. "I'll read it when it's done. I won't change a word without talking to you first." "Okay." "Nina." "Yes." "Welcome to the chair." She picked up her coffee. It had gone lukewarm. She drank it anyway. Outside the window, the crow on the flagstone looked up at the sky, cocked its head, and then, on some decision she would never understand, lifted off in a slow, heavy beat of black wings, and was gone. Nina sat down at the kitchen table. She pulled her notepad out of the pocket of her apron, which she had brought downstairs without thinking. The little pen was still clipped to the cover. She opened to a fresh page. She began to write a message to a woman she had never met, a woman who had lost a son, a woman who was 12 hours away from losing the last thing she had left if somebody did not speak to her in the only language she had agreed, a long time ago, to hear. Behind her, Adrian Voss poured himself another cup of coffee and watched her write, and did not say a word. The message Nina wrote took her 40 minutes, and most of those 40 minutes were not spent writing. They were spent crossing things out. She wrote it on the small lined page of her server's notepad with the pen she had used 1,000 times to write medium rare, no onions, side of aioli, and the first 3 drafts were bad. The first one was too cold. It read like a lawyer had written it, and Iris Cade would have laughed at it and lit it on fire. The second one was too warm. It spoke about Tomas, and Nina understood as she was writing the sentence that she had no right to speak about Tomas, and that if the message contained a single word about him from a mouth that had never known him, Iris would take it as a provocation and Lena would be dead in 24 hours. She tore that page out of the pad and folded it into a small tight square and put it in her pocket. because she did not want it in the trash where somebody might see it later and think she had been careless. The third draft she wrote in her own voice, and when she read it back, she realized it sounded like a woman apologizing for being in the room. She tore that one out too. The fourth one she wrote for Adrian. Not as Adrian, for him. She wrote it in the voice of a man who had been carrying a debt for 4 years and had run out of ways to pretend the debt was not the center of his life. She wrote it without excuses. She wrote it without flinching. She wrote it to a woman who had every reason to hate the person sending it and who would read every word as if the words themselves were carrying weapons. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," the message began. "I never will. I'm asking you, before you do the thing you are about to do, to consider that the person you will become the day after is not the person Tomas would recognize. I know what I am. I am not telling you what I am to make you smaller. I am telling you because I have had 3 years to look at it, and you have not. And you deserve to know that the road forward is not what it looks like from where you are standing. If you move on my daughter, I will come for you, and I will not stop, and I do not want to do that. I owe you more than that. I owe you the debt I still owe Tomas. I have not paid it. I will not pretend I can. But I'm asking you, on the strength of what we were to each other for 11 years, to take the truce that is still on my end. No conditions, no counter, not even an answer. Just stop. If you stop, you will never hear from me again about this, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure the men who put Tomas in that seat do not die in their beds. And that is a promise I will keep whether you ever know it or not. If you do not stop, I will understand, and I will do what I have to do, and there will be no hatred in it, because there has never been hatred in it. Only the oldest grief either of us has ever carried. It is your choice. I am sorry it has always been your choice. I am sorry for everything that made it yours." She handed the notepad to Adrian without saying anything. He read it standing at the counter, and he read it twice, and then he set the notepad down and walked to the kitchen window. He stood there for a long time with his back to her. She could see his shoulders moving, just a little, under the white undershirt. She did not know whether he was crying, and she decided she did not have a right to know, and she looked away. "Don't change anything," he said finally. "Okay?" "Not one word." "Okay. Where did you learn to write like that?" "Comparative literature." He laughed. It was a short laugh. It had something broken in it. "Of course." He turned around. His eyes were dry. Whatever had moved in his shoulders had not made it to his face. "Sal's call is at 9, he said. "The neutral will go at 10 with your words. We should know something by 2. If Iris is going to do the second thing, she'll either do it today or she'll wait a week. The window narrows after 6 p.m. If we get to midnight without movement, we're probably clear for the weekend. And if we get to next week? If we get to next week, it means she read the letter and didn't hate it. It doesn't mean she accepted it. She'll take time. She may take months. But if the immediate window closes, it closes because of what you wrote. Just so you know." Nina nodded. She didn't know what to do with that. She folded the notepad closed. She put it back in the apron pocket. Sal came back into the kitchen at 8:45. He had showered. He had put on a different shirt. The hand tremor was gone, or he had gotten it back under whatever latch he kept it on. He looked at Adrian, and he looked at Nina, and he said, "Beatrice will call at 9:15 her time, noon ours." She agreed to try. She did not agree to succeed. She made me promise 3 things before she would do it. I said yes to 2, and we compromised on the 3rd. I will tell you about them later when it matters. The short version is that if Iris does not stop after this, Beatrice is going to tell me we are dead to each other, and she will mean it. That is the price. I am paying it. "Sal," Adrian said. "Don't, Adrian, I love her. I have loved her since she was a child. I am going to lose her to save yours. This is the arithmetic. Don't make me look at it any more than I have to." He sat down at the table. He put his forehead in his hand. He did not make a sound. Adrian walked over and put his hand on the back of Sal's neck and left it there for a long moment, and neither of them spoke. And Nina understood that she was seeing something she was not meant to see, and she turned her face to the window and watched the empty flagstone in the back garden where the crow had been. The rest of the morning was waiting. Nina had never been good at waiting. Her body kept trying to do things. Stand up, sit down, pick up the coffee, put it down. Sal had warned her once, in the middle of one of his long meandering Sal sentences, that a big part of the job was sitting very still while other people worked. She was not built for it yet. Maybe she never would be. Pax came in and out. The neutral had been contacted. The message had been passed. Delivery was confirmed at 11:04. Beatrice's call had gone through. Iris had taken it. Beatrice had talked for 9 minutes. Iris had hung up on her once, called back 6 minutes later, and they had talked for another 11. After that, silence. Noon came. 1, 2. The kitchen got hotter. Somebody turned the heat down. Somebody else. A woman Nina had not met. Young, quiet, with a dish towel over her shoulder. Brought in food she had made somewhere else in the house. Cold roast chicken and bread and a plate of something pickled, and set it on the table and left without a word. Nina ate. She hadn't realized she was hungry until she had the chicken in her hand. She ate 2 pieces and a whole piece of bread before she noticed. Nina. She looked up. Adrian was at the table now, across from her. His phone was in his hand, screen down. 3 o'clock. 30 minutes ago, she told the man she had in the city to stand down. One of Pax's people confirmed it through a channel we have. She hasn't accepted the truce in so many words. She hasn't said anything, but the man is on a train out of town. He will not be back this week. Nina set the bread down. That's it, she said. That's it, for now, for this week. Not forever. Never forever. This isn't that kind of peace. But we bought time. We bought months, maybe a year. By the time she comes back to it, if she does, the federal matter will be behind us, and we will be in a different position, and so will she. That's the most anyone gets in this work. Time. She sat with that for a minute. Time. The word felt strange in her mouth. She had been living without it for so long. Living, she understood now, in a single stuck second, the second between the phone call with Daniel and the one that came after, that she had forgotten what it was for. Time was what you used to do things. It was not a ribbon that had been cut. It was a thing you were given in small, inconvenient pieces and had to decide what to do with. She could feel, somewhere under her sternum, a small loosening. It was barely anything. It was not joy. It was not relief exactly, because relief would have had to be bigger than what she had earned. It was only the small untying of one of the ropes she had been carrying, and it hurt when it came undone, in a way she had not expected. Go upstairs, Adrian said. Call your mother, then sleep. You haven't slept. I slept a little. You didn't. No, I didn't. Go. She went. She climbed the stairs. She sat on the bed in the pajamas she had not put back on, and she looked at her phone, which Pax had returned to her at some point in the morning with an apology for having copied its contents, and she dialed her mother's number. Her mother picked up on the second ring because her mother always picked up on the second ring. Because for 21 months her mother had been picking up phones as fast as phones could ring in case the news on the other end was that someone else was gone. Nina? Honey? Why are you calling in the afternoon? Mom? Are you sick? Is everything okay? Mom, I'm fine. Just sit down a second. You're scaring me. I know, just sit down. It's nothing bad. Or, it's not bad for me. I'm okay, I'm good. Are you sitting? I'm sitting. Okay. She did not know how to say it. She had been thinking about how to say it for 4 hours, and she still did not know. There was no version of the sentence that was going to fit in her mother's ear the way she wanted it to. I quit the restaurant, she said. Oh, Nina, it's not what you think. I got a different job, a better one. I'm going to be working for a company, a consulting firm. I can't talk about it much on the phone. I'm going to be traveling a lot. I wanted you to know before you got worried about not hearing from me every day. A consulting firm. Yes. Nina. Mom. Her mother was quiet for a long moment. Her mother was 62 years old. Her mother had raised 2 kids on a paralegal salary after Nina's father had left the first time. Her mother had been a paralegal for 31 years, which was to say, her mother had been reading between the lines of what people told her for 31 years, and her mother was not an idiot. Honey, her mother said, is this about your brother? Nina closed her eyes. Some of it, she said. Are you going to be safe? Safer than I was working somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Mom, I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm going to be around people who are paid to keep me safe. It's going to look weird from the outside. If anybody calls you asking about me, you tell them I took a job at a firm and you don't know the details. That's true. You don't know the details. I'll come see you next month, I promise. I'll come for a weekend and we'll go to the place on 5th and we'll get the pancakes Daniel liked. Her mother made a sound. It was not a cry. It was smaller than a cry. It was the sound a person makes when something they have been carrying for a long time shifts in their arms. Nina. Yes, Mom. I knew you were going to do something. I know you did. I have been waiting for 2 years to find out what. I know. I don't want to know the details. Okay. If you need me, you call. I will. If something bad happens, I want you to come home, Nina. I don't care what it is. I don't care what you have done. You come home. Do you hear me? I hear you. Say it. I'll come home. Okay? Okay. I love you, Nina. I love you too, Mom. Take care of yourself. And eat. You don't eat when you're thinking too hard. I'll eat. And call me Sunday. I will. She hung up. She sat on the edge of the bed, and she cried for about 3 minutes. She did not sob. She cried the way a pipe leaks, slow and steady, her face in her hands, her shoulders not moving. When she was done, she wiped her face on the sleeve of the borrowed sweater, and the sweater smelled like the detergent of a house she did not yet know. And she took 3 long breaths, and she stood up, and she went back downstairs. Adrian and Sal were at the table again. Pax was there too, standing this time, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. The plate of chicken was gone. The coffee was gone. A pot of tea had replaced it, and Sal was drinking from a cup that was far too delicate for his hands. They looked up when she came in. They did not stop talking. Sal simply gestured at the chair, and the chair was waiting for her, and she sat down in it. We have about 6 weeks, Sal was saying, before the first federal subpoena. We have maybe 10 before the matter itself goes public. Between now and the subpoena, I want every piece of paper that matters out of my office and into a location I'll tell you about when you need to know. Pax will run that. Nina will shadow him for the first 2 weeks of it, because she needs to see how that works. And then she will tell me what she would have done differently, and we will actually listen to her. Noted, Pax said. I'd like to bring Corbin in as a cooperating witness, Nina said. She surprised herself by saying it out loud. She had been thinking about it since the kitchen this morning, but she had not decided she would mention it yet. Adrian looked at her. Corbin. Yes, he's going to be useless to us once we have whatever information he has. He can't go back. He can't stay in a basement forever. He has a family. And right now he is the one piece of evidence that the federal attorney in this city does not have, on a case that she wants very badly, and that is not Adrian's case. I read the filings, the public parts, last month on a whim, because I was bored at the library. Corbin built 2 devices in the last year for a network in another state that the federal attorney has been trying to close for 8 months. If we hand him to her with the right framing, she owes us. She isn't going to love it, but she will. And when she moves on Adrian in the spring, as she will remember that her last big win came from our direction, and she will have a harder time making the theatrical version of her case, because the theatrical version requires Adrian to be monolithic, and he will not look monolithic if he has recently cooperated on another matter. The kitchen was quiet. Nina, Adrian said. Yes. You read the filings on a whim. I was bored. At the library. Yes. Sal started laughing. It started low and built, and then it took him. And he laughed until he had to take his glasses off to wipe his eyes. Pax smiled. Adrian watched her for a long moment with an expression she could not read at all, and then he said, Okay, Nina, make the call. Work with Pax on the framing. You have until Monday. Okay. One more thing. Yes. Peter Ravel. She stopped. The man who called the men who killed your brother, Adrian said. He has 14 months left on his sentence. He is not a protected man inside. He is a man who has been kept alive by the fact that I have not, until now, given any specific instruction about him. I have been thinking about him all morning. I would like your permission to give a specific instruction. Nina did not answer for a long time. She thought about Daniel. She thought about the parking garage. She thought about the detective with the bad dye job. She thought about the second floor of the library at the university, where she had spent 4 years before any of this, reading novels about people who made terrible choices and came out of them changed in ways that were supposed to mean something. She thought about her mother on the other end of the phone, a minute ago, saying you come home. No, she said. Adrian did not move. No? No. Not now. Maybe not ever. I don't know. I need to not have that on the first week. I need to not have that on me while I am learning what this job is. And I don't know how to say this so it doesn't sound soft. I need to know that I can make a different choice about different men later. If the first choice I make in this chair is to have a man killed in a prison, then I will make every choice after it wondering whether I am only making it because that was the first one. I want to make that choice cold if I make it. I want to make it because I thought about it for a year, not because I was on no sleep and I was grateful to you. Sal looked at Adrian. Adrian looked at Nina. Okay, Nina, Adrian said. Ravel lives. For now. For now. Okay. Sal? Yes, Adrian. Make a note. I don't need a note for this one. No, you don't. They sat there for a little while. Pax left to start on Corbin. Sal poured himself more tea with hands that had gotten steadier again. Adrian did not pour anything. Adrian just sat. After a while, Sal said softly, Nina. Yes, you're going to be very good at this. And it is going to cost you things you have not counted yet. I want to say one thing to you while Adrian is in the room so that he hears it too, because he will not say it to you himself, and I want him to be reminded of it when you are not thinking about it. Okay, the cost. You will look at it in a year and you will think you chose it. You did not. You did not choose any of the parts of it that will hurt the most. You chose the first step. That is all any of us ever chose. Everything after is the shape of the road, and the road is narrower than it looks at the start. So when you find yourself 2 years from now, 3 years, having done things you would not have believed you would do, I want you to remember that what you chose was a step, and the step was a good one, and the rest was the road. Do not carry the road, carry the step. Adrian across the table closed his eyes for just a second. He opened them again. I've been needing to hear that for 22 years, he said. I've been needing to say it for 22 years. You said it to me plenty. Not this way. No, not this way. Nina looked at her hands. They were still. She had not noticed when they had stopped being cold. Later, weeks later, months later, in some version of the story that was still being written, she would remember this afternoon as the last one that belonged clearly to her old self. Not because anything changed drastically after it. Adrian's indictment came in May, as Sal had predicted, and the charges were quieter than the newspapers had expected, because a federal attorney who was owed a favor had chosen not to be theatrical about her case. Iris Cade stayed quiet for 11 months, and then she wrote a letter to Sal that neither Sal nor Adrian would ever let Nina read, and then she stayed quiet for another 4 years. Corbin testified, got 3 years suspended, moved his family to a state nobody in Nina's orbit had been to in a decade, and once a year, on the anniversary of the night at Castellane, he sent Nina a card. Pax's respect, which had started out as a concession, became the real thing over the course of a year, and by the time he retired, he called her by her first name without thinking about it, which, for a man like Pax, was a kind of love. And Daniel, of course, stayed dead. There were nights in the first year when Nina sat at her window in a new apartment that was not her old one, in a neighborhood she could not have afforded before, and she waited for the feeling she had been chasing for almost 2 years, the feeling that she had done enough, that she had settled the ledger, that Daniel was quieter now, that the silence he had left in her house had gotten smaller. The feeling did not come. Sal had warned her it would not come. She believed him less before, and she believed him more now, and it was still hard. Grief did not have the decency to be logical. Grief did not accept payment. Grief only, sometimes, on its own unpredictable schedule, gave you back a smaller piece of yourself, and she learned slowly to take the pieces when they were offered and not to demand them when they weren't. She thought about Peter Ravel some nights. She never gave the instruction. She never quite told Adrian not to either, but she never gave it herself. Peter Ravel lived out his sentence and walked out of the facility on a cool morning and got into a car with a man who had been paid by somebody neither Nina nor Adrian had ever met. And that man drove Peter Ravel to a small house in a town where nobody knew him. And Peter Ravel spent the next 20 years of his life in that house, alone. And Nina, when she was told about it years later, understood that Adrian had built that house, and that Adrian had paid that man, and that Adrian had done it without asking her, because Adrian had understood that the one thing she had asked him for, the thing she had asked for twice in 2 different kitchens, was to keep Peter Ravel alive. And he had. She understood, the night Adrian told her about the house, that this was the shape of what she had actually built with him. Not a romance, not a friendship exactly, though there were pieces of something that might have been called one if they had been different people in different lives. What she had built was a set of rules, slowly, over a long time, by saying no in small ways and yes in larger ones, and by refusing, even on the nights when it would have been easier, to become the version of herself that the work kept offering her. She did not always win. She wanted to say she did. She had not. There were a handful of times in the years that followed when she had made a call and the call had gone wrong, and a man had died who Sal and Pax agreed did not have to, and she had sat up all night with it, and she had called Sal at 3 in the morning, and Sal had, without complaint, gotten out of bed and driven to her apartment and sat on her couch and said nothing for 2 hours. That had happened 3 times. She remembered all 3 of the men. She would remember them when she was old. There were also nights when the call had gone right, when a decision she had pushed for had kept somebody alive, a kid somewhere, or a woman whose name she would never know, or once an entire block of people who had been about to sit down to a meal in a building that had been identified as a target an hour before. And those nights, she allowed herself to feel proud, not in the big way, not in the way that would have made Sal wince, in the small way, in the way that was the size of one breath. On the first anniversary of the night at Castellane, Adrian had the restaurant reopened for one evening, privately, for a meal with no other guests. It was him and Sophia and Lena and Sal. And Nina. Marco was still the manager. He had cried, a little, when Adrian had called to arrange it. Chef Darian cooked. He came out of the kitchen at the end of the meal and shook Nina's hand, and he did not say anything because Darian did not say anything, but he held her hand for a long moment with both of his. Lena, who was 18 now, and had decided at some point during the year to stop hating her father for reasons nobody at the table wanted to analyze too closely, sat next to Nina and asked her 100 questions about books. She had been told, in whatever sanitized version Sophia had pieced together, that Nina had done something important the year before. She had not been told what. She would not be told what for a long time. She asked Nina what she had been reading in the library before, and Nina told her, and Lena wrote some of the titles down on a napkin, and Nina understood, watching her write, that the girl she had saved was now going to carry a small piece of her into whatever life she ended up living, and that was also a thing worth having done. Sophia Voss, at some point in the middle of the dinner, reached across the table and took Nina's hand, and Sophia said, "Nina, you know what I think about every day." "No?" "I think about you walking up to our table. I think, what if she had decided not to? And every day I decide to be a better version of myself because of it, and every day I don't quite make it, and every day I try again. I wanted you to know that." "Thank you, Sophia." "No, sweetheart. Thank you is the wrong direction." That was all. Sophia let her hand go. The conversation moved on. Nina did not know what to do with what Sophia had said, and she did not try to. She put it in the drawer where she kept the things she was not ready to look at yet, and she went back to her wine. After dinner, Adrian walked her to a car. The rain had not come that night. It was a clear, cold evening, and the city was quiet, and their breaths steamed in the air between them. At the curb he stopped, and she stopped, and they stood there for a moment looking at each other. "A year," he said. "A year. You're good at this." "Sal said I would be." "Sal's almost never wrong." "No." "Nina." "Yes. I don't say this often, so listen." "Okay. You didn't save my daughter's life that night." She looked at him. "Adrian, let me finish. You didn't save my daughter's life. You saved a lot of lives. You saved Sophia. You saved Sal. You saved 40 strangers. You didn't save Lena." "Lena was in the bathroom when you saw the bomb. Lena was going to walk out that front door in 30 seconds either way. She was the one person in the room who would have gotten clear without you. I wanted you to know that, because I've been letting you carry it for a year, and it's been mine to carry, and I'm giving it back." She looked at him for a long time. Why tonight? Because it's been a year. Because you paid for it this year in ways I watched. Because it's mine. Okay? Okay. Adrian. Yes. Whose life did I save? He thought about it. Mine, he said. And that, Nina, is not a small thing. It is a thing I will spend what's left of my life trying to be worthy of. I will probably fail. I wanted you to know that too. She nodded. She did not say anything. There was nothing to say. She got in the car. The driver, who was not Pax, who Pax had trained, pulled away from the curb, and the lights of the city slid past the window the way they had a year ago. Only this time she was not crying, and this time she was not wet from the rain, and this time she was not being asked a question she did not know the answer to. She thought about her brother, not in the stuck second anymore, in a different way. She thought about Daniel on her couch, in a blue shirt, telling her a bad joke, and she smiled. And she did not feel guilty about the smile, and she realized somewhere between one stoplight and the next that she had stopped being a woman who was running from a phone call she had failed to take, and had become a woman who was running toward something she was not sure she could name yet. She was not a hero. She had not at any point been a hero. She was a person who had seen something that nobody else was looking at, and who had done a small, dangerous thing about it, and who had then been offered a room where more of that kind of seeing was needed. She had said yes. She had said yes for reasons she did not fully trust, and for reasons she did, and for reasons she would spend the rest of her life trying to figure out. That was all any of it had ever been. A step. Sal had been right. The road had been narrower than it looked at the start. She had done things she could not have imagined a year ago she would do. She would do more of them. She understood this. She accepted it. She also understood that there was still, underneath everything, a woman who read a lot, a woman who had loved her brother, a woman who made her mother laugh on Sunday phone calls, a woman who had once burned her hand on a skillet in her first month at Castellane and had kept the small scars a reminder that she had been there, that she had lived through that version of her life too. She was going to keep that woman alive. That was the work. Not the phone calls, not the meetings, not the careful, cold rooms where she now sat at the right hand of a man the papers called a kingpin. The work was keeping the woman who read a lot alive, inside the woman who sat in the rooms. The work was carrying both of them, together, for as long as her legs held. The car turned a corner. The city opened up in front of her. Somewhere, a long way away, a crow lifted off a piece of stone she would never see, and the wings of it beat the air, heavy and black, and the sound of that beating was something only it could hear. Nina Hale closed her eyes, and she breathed in, and she breathed out, and for the first time in almost 3 years, it came easy.